Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen.
You're at 109 right now.
Alrighty, y'all. So let's get into the what is it called? Let's get into what 109 means. All right. First and foremost.
Welcome. You are now listening to the 10-9
Oh
podcast.
yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. So let's get into this 10-9, this 109 meaning. Okay, because I was driving for Uber the other day, and a young lady got in the car. Her name was Alex. Alex was so cool. Alex was mindful. She was living in the moment. She's from New York. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. But as soon as she got in the car, she noticed that I put a sign in my back seat that read, it actually reads, please purchase a copy of 109, my book, at, oh no, I even said for $1.09 at www.ic109.store. So as soon as she hopped in the car, you know, she was fully aware of her surroundings and she was like, so you wrote a book? And I'm like, I'm trying to get her to her destination. So I'm like, oh my gosh, you're quick. She's like, yeah, so what's your book about? And I'm like, whoa, okay. So we started talking. And along the trip, along our ride together, she asked me, what does 109 mean, and what was the inspiration for it, and all this other type of stuff. And so I had to go into the description and details and give her some information. And man, it was dope because she was very, very receptive, and she was like, "I get it," and it was just a beautiful situation, all in all. So let's get into 109. Let's talk about it. What does it mean? And so at least I'll have a more recent recorded explanation of 109 that I can refer someone to and say, well, I've answered that here. Why don't you check this one out? You know, something like that. You dig?
You are now listening to the IC 10-9 podcast.
Yeah. All right. So 10-9 or 109 or 109. First level of interpretation is it's my birthday. Those those numbers are an allusion to my birthday. 1, 0, and 9. You look at 109, 109. We give the 1 and the 0, that's the number 10. That stands for October. And 9, the ninth day of October. So taken together, 10-9 is October 9th, which is my birthday. All right. So this is not some solipsistic, rabbit hole we're going down. It's more so, it's the first point of recognition. So when I got my first car, I put a personalized license plate on my vehicle that had those numbers, 1, 0, and 9. They're just some numbers, but taken together in that particular order, 1, 0, and 9, to me, that's my birthday, October 9th. So almost 20 years ago when I put those, it was 18 years ago when I put that on my license plate, it was because 1, 0, and 9 said to me, this is my birthday. So that was the first thing, right? Now, my story is about how I would encounter those numbers in mysterious ways. For instance, I moved to South Korea to teach English, to work, live, work, and that was a huge journey for me. It was a huge stepping stone. Like, who does that? In my case, I drastically needed a place to work, a job, and Korea was where I had to go to find, gainful employment because things weren't working out in Los Angeles. So I flew. I flew all the way to Korea. I mean, they paid for my flight. I had a job when I arrived. It wasn't like I was just going to a country with no contacts. No, I had a contact. I was promised a job. I had already signed the contract. It was go time. So when I landed, I had things in place to receive me. As soon as I landed, here's your apartment. Come to work, here's your job, here's your desk. You know, at the end of the month, you get your paycheck and rinse and repeat. Just keep going. Now, that could have turned out really dramatic. It could have been really bad for me, but it was really good. It was a really beautiful experience because when I got to Korea, several months after I arrived in March. So 7 months into my stay in Korea, when October rolled around, my birthday came around, and I wanted to celebrate my birthday, but I was um, I was rudely awakened by the news that my birthday just wasn't important to Koreans, especially not my Korean friends, because my birthday fell, or rather, my birthday falls on a national holiday, the same day they celebrate their language, Hangul, the Korean language. So their attention, as well as the whole nation's attention, was focused on the Korean language, not me. And my friends, they were like, "Oh, that's your birthday? Oh yeah, well we celebrate the Korean language that day too." Like, "Oh, okay. Are we gonna have a birthday party for me?" They're, "Nah, we're gonna be celebrating the Korean language." Not really. It wasn't really like that. I had a really nice circle of friends, and peace and blessings, to the late Gigi Jeek, Jeek, like scratching on the records. That was her pet name or the nickname that she carried, Gigi Jeek, because she liked hip hop. Um, Che Jong Un is her Korean name. She passed away, sadly, just recently of leukemia. Beautiful, beautiful sister, beautiful soul, Korean sister. Anywho, she bought a cake for me, and she was like, "No, your birthday is important. We're gonna celebrate your birthday." That was a beautiful, beautiful gesture, coming from her. So anyway, even though it was a holiday, national holiday, to celebrate the Korean language, they Gigi Jeek celebrated my birthday. That was dope. So, but the idea is that I up and left my home, found myself in a foreign land, but my birthday, that highly significant day to all of us, all of our birthdays are important. Well, my birthday fell on a national holiday. So, okay, who gives a shit, right? Well, no. If your birthday falls on a national holiday, guess what? Every time your birthday rolls around, you personally have the opportunity to take that day off. Because if it's a national holiday, well, like businesses are closed and stuff. So you don't have to work on your birthday. So it actually, technically, it wasn't that way in 2007. Um, it had been, it had been a holiday pre 2007, and then they, like, I don't know, delimited it. They 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 didn't, it was not a holiday where businesses closed. It was no longer national holiday. And then I think in 2011 they had discussions to bring it back, and by 2012 it had been reinstated as a national holiday. So between 2007 and 2012, well, I did not experience a day off on my birthday. But I lived in Korea from 2007 to 2016. And those last 4 years that I was in Korea, I got my birthday off because the holiday had been reinstated and businesses were closed and I didn't have to work. That was beautiful, right? Beautiful. So that's a beautiful moment of synchronicity where the country that you live and something about you personally match up, and it's a delight. It's a delightful experience, right? So my point is this: when I see the number 109, I get excited. I get excited because I see my birthday. And then that's just level 1. Level 2 is if I'm in South Korea around October 9th, that's a beautiful day because, well, when I worked there, I had the day off. Now, if I'm just a traveler and I go to South Korea, it's like big whoop. I don't really care about 10/9 really because I'm not working there, right? It doesn't mean anything. But when I worked there, it meant something. I got my birthday off. That was really, really cool. All right. So those are two levels, two interpretations. Now, after South Korea, I traveled to Japan. When I traveled to Japan, I found that 1019 is the name of a very famous shopping mall. And that, in and of itself, was a moment of delight for me. When I went to Korea, excuse me, when I left Korea for Japan and I saw that shopping mall and the numbers 10 and 9, oh, I just felt like, once again, I'm at home. I felt like, dang, Asia is the place for me. Whether I'm in Korea, whether I'm in Japan, Asia is for me because they're giving me, these numbers are giving me something in Korea and in Japan. In Japan, there are millions of people and they're all around. But here I am, of those millions of people, I look up at this building and I see those familiar numbers and I'm like, hey, like this is where I'm supposed to be. This is cool. Imagine that. Imagine no one else having a connection to those numbers. Those are just random numbers to them. Okay, it's on the building, it's the name of the shop. Okay, fine, whatever. But I'm looking at it like that's my birthday, right? So anyway, so Japan gave me um another moment of delight just to be there and to see those numbers. That was in Japan. But the it goes deeper in Japan because what I learned over the years of traveling to Japan and just finding things that these little details that I thought were curious to me, when I discovered their connection to 10-9 or 109, then it was bizarre. It was again very delightful, but again it was more so to me. They led me to the conclusion that Japan is the home of 10-9. All right, let me explain. One thing that I noticed in Japan was the word Tokyo, and I thought it was a misspelling of Tokyo. And I did some research and I discovered that Tokyu, Tokyu, is the truncation. It's the truncation of two names. I don't know those two names, but it's a name that starts with To and another name that ends with Q. So they chop those names up, put them together, and you have Tokyu, which creates something new. But Tokyu, taken in and of itself, is you have two sounds, To, and you have Q, Tokyu. Again, when I saw this word Tokyu plastered everywhere around Tokyo, I thought it was a misspelling of Tokyo. But no, it's Tokyu. It's the truncation of two surnames, okay? Two family names, last names. But To means 10 and Q means 9. So when I was moving around Tokyo looking at signs that read Tokyo, I did not know what it meant. I didn't know that it meant that these were two family names that had been combined, compounded to create this new word. I didn't know that. Also, I did not know that To means 10 and Q means 9. But everywhere that I looked and I saw Tokyo, I thought to myself, why what's what's up with that mistake? That's a mistake. They should be spelling Tokyo, right? No. And the fact that To and Q is 10 and 9, that's just incredible that they match up with those same numbers that are atop that building, that shopping mall. Now, 10 and 9 Tokyo. So, what's even what's even what also became clear to me is that there's another company, right? So we've got businesses that are called Tokyo Group, Tokyo Plaza all around the city, right? Tokyo. Then we have the 109, Shibuya Ichimaru-kyu. Ichimaru-kyu means 109, okay, atop a building. Then you have this curious business that recently changed its name. 4 or 5 years ago, they changed their name. But when I was in Japan, the name was Tokyu Hands. Tokyu Hands. And so, what Tokyu Hands meant, again, it was probably just another truncation of the two family names. But if you read it, it could also mean 109 hands, right? Now, they recently changed it. It's no longer Tokyu. The name of the company now is just Hands, right? Anywho, um, I did not know that the company was 109 Hands, that the mall was Shibuya 109, that Tokyo meant 10 or 109. I didn't know any of these things, but I just kept getting mm, resonance from the numbers 10 and 9 in Tokyo, excuse me. And then the last thing that most recently that I learned is that heaven, heaven means, or in Japanese, 10. If you say 10, but 10 is not the number 10 in Japanese, but it's just the way that a character sounds phonetically. 10. Well, 10 means heaven, right? And it's curious that I would go to this city in the prefecture, Kyushu prefecture, the city of Fukuoka, and I would stay in the Tenjin area. Tenjin. Ten meaning heaven, Jin meaning God. So I would stay in this city, this part of the city that was known as Heavenly God. I just thought that was interesting. Just thought that was interesting. So, um, but 10 and 9, they just seem to resonate. They just seem to stick out for me in Tokyo. And ask anyone, ask any Japanese person about 10 and 9 or 10 9, or in Japanese, Ichimaru-kyu. Like, just ask them, what does that mean to you? Every Japanese person will say, oh, you're talking about the shopping mall. Everyone knows the shopping mall. It's iconic. Okay. So the fact that I'm talking about these numbers 109 shouldn't be something like, oh, this is solipsistic. This is egoistic. This is you just focusing on your numbers. It's like, nah, man. I've seen those numbers that have a connection to me, but I've seen them in other parts of the world, and I'm putting the pieces together as to what the heck. Why would they have those numbers over there on that building like that? So then to answer that question, why do they have those numbers on that building? Because in Japanese they have something called goro awase. Goro awase is a pun, play on words. And basically, here's an example how the Japanese play with words. We've got yakuza. Have you ever heard of the yakuza? Well, the yakuza is a gang, low lifes, gamblers, killers, gangsters. And I actually forgot the numbers. So if I say the numbers incorrectly, I'm sorry. But Yakuza, I think, means 837. I don't know. I forgot. I forgot the numbers. But when you take, oh, excuse me. What I'm saying is those numbers, the name of the game, the name of the gang is derived from those three numbers because there's a game, a Japanese game. It's a card game. And if you have those three cards with those three numbers, it's like a losing hand is the worst hand to have. So the gang is named after a losing hand in this game. And so, like the game, it's a gambler's game. The Yakuza are gamblers, and they're, basically like low lifes, right? That's the perception, reputation that they have. They're gangsters, they're bad guys, lowly figures. But controversially, they've actually been quite decent and quite beneficent, benevolent, excuse me, benevolent. Take it, take it as you will. Take it with a grain of salt. But these are the interpretations. So we've gone from my recognition, me seeing 109 and saying that's my birthday, moving to Korea and seeing that 109 is the day on which they celebrate their national holiday, Korean language, and then going to Japan, discovering the Japanese have this thing called Goro Awase, Goro Awas. I don't speak Japanese. I really need to speak to someone about Goro Awas, Goro Awase, and get their perspective. It's absolutely something real. I learned about it through researching it on Wikipedia. So there's a page about Goro Awase, and they have a list of numbers that are popular, that are popularly used. Okay, think when you think of Goro Awase or Goro Awas in Japanese, think of 143 in English, right? That movie with Samuel L. Jackson, I think it was 187. That's the movie I think I watched when 143 when I learned what that means. 143 means I love you because I has one letter, love has four letters, and you has three letters. 143. I love you. Fascinating, right? All right. So after Korea and Japan, my story could basically end there. Like, okay, so your those numbers had held some significance in those two countries. Big whoop. Okay. But as I continued to travel, those numbers continue to follow me. All right, let me see. 2017. Let's see. Excuse me. Phew. By 2017, I traveled to 17 countries that year. Um, let's see what happened. Bahrain. Actually, in Bahrain, I don't think it was 2017. It might have been 2018. But anyway, I traveled to Bahrain in 2017 for the first time. The story that I have about Bahrain is I went to Bahrain a number of times. And one time that I went there, I went into a hotel room and the television was not on, but there was a satellite box sitting atop the television. And the frequency the satellite box was set to was 1009. And that was in my room and my room only. So there I was in Bahrain. I got my hotel room. They gave me the key. I walk up to my room and I open the door. I check out my new home, my new apartment, and 109 is staring at me from the satellite box. Okay, big whoop. It's just something that you noticed. What a coincidence. That's pretty cool, right? Think about how that made me feel. Kind of felt like, does someone know the significance of those numbers to me? Does someone know that I'm actually in Bahrain? Does someone know that I'm staying at this hotel? Yes, I admit it. These thoughts are very paranoid, but that's how I felt. I was paranoid. I was like, man, of all the numbers that could have been on that television, in my room, I get the numbers 109. I was like, whoa. Now, I was working in Saudi Arabia at the time, and I was in Bahrain with my colleagues, my fellow colleagues, and they were staying in other rooms in the same hotel. And I went into at least one other room, and I noticed that they had televisions, but none of them had the same numbers. Hell, I don't even think they had that same box, that little same satellite box atop their television. So that was just completely bizarre to have been matched with those numbers, that room, you know, on that trip. So that was Bahrain. 2017, I traveled. I continued to travel, and I continued to see 109 on my travels. Cuba, Mexico, Peru. I'll tell you the stories of Cuba, Mexico, and Peru. In Cuba, well, okay, let's go chronologically. First, Mexico. I went to Frida Kahlo's, Frida Kahlo's, La Casa Azul. At La Casa Azul, um, well, okay, in order to get there, I had to take an Uber. So I ordered the Uber. The driver came to the Airbnb, the home where I was staying. He picked me up. He dropped me off at La Casa Azul, Frida Kahlo's old house. As I'm getting out of the car, I noticed that the driver, my Uber driver, was listening to radio station 100.9, right? Not 109, but 100.9. And that struck me as, hey, those, there go those numbers again, 10 and 9. It's not 109, but it's 100.9 on the FM dial or whatever. But for me, I still see, I see 10 and 9. For me, that's what I see.
Welcome. You are now listening to the 10-9 podcast.
Yeah. So even though it's 100.9, it's still 10 and 9. 10. 10 is 1 and 0, right? 9 is 0, 9. And let's just forget the fact that the decimal point is there. It's just 1009. That's 1009. Even if it's 1009, that's still 10 and 9 if we break it down, basically. Anywho, so I thought that was interesting. But what is even more interesting is just the other night, I watched a documentary about Frida Kahlo, and it struck me that Frida's spirit was so strong, and her will was just so strong. Like she created artwork, and it was very personal to her. In very much the way that I have this podcast, in very much the way that I have my YouTube channel, it's very personal. In the way that I'm talking about this number 109 is very personal. Frida Kahlo was the same way with her artwork. She was very intentionally personal. She painted her life, self portraits, the people in her life, very, very, you know, intentionally. Um, and her spirit and her life, really resonate with me. You know what? There's this quirky idea that I came away with when I watched after watching this documentary about Frida Kahlo the other night. Two things. One, I watched the documentary, and then two, I also listened to a podcast with Roger Gunvir Smith. In the podcast with Roger Gunvir Smith, he said that by the time Frederick Douglass, the great American abolitionist, once born into slavery, freed through his own means, his own will, he said that when Frederick Douglass died, by that, you know, after the course of his life, the last moment, the last time of his life, Frederick Douglass was a feminist. The day that he died, he had just spoken at a feminist meeting, and his views and everything that he espoused were pro feminism, which I thought was interesting because there I was in Frida Kahlo's home having a 109 moment. I'm exiting my car, exiting my Uber taxi, and I see 109. But then I had this moment with Frida's spirit after I returned to Los Angeles, where my sister called me in Los Angeles, and I answered the phone, and I was standing at a table before four pictures of Frida Kahlo. And my sister on the other end, I answered the phone, hello. She said, hey, oh, you're back from your trip to Latin America. I said, yeah. She was like, did you go to Frida Kahlo's home? And when she asked me that, I was kind of struck by the fact that those these pictures, these postcards of Frida Kahlo were staring back at me. It was like Frida was present during this conversation I was having with my sister over the phone. And I was like, yeah, I went to her Frida Kahlo's home, the museum now. Now, the reason why my sister asked me about Frida Kahlo is because Frida is an icon, right? And my sister speaks Spanish, studied in Mexico, so it was like second nature to just ask about Frida Kahlo, right? But the curious thing about our interaction on that day when I'm standing before those pictures of Frida Kahlo, those postcards, was that that day was Frida Kahlo's birthday. So it was a bizarre sense that somehow Frida was recognizing my birthday when I arrived in at the Blue La Casa Azul. It was like she was recognizing my birthday with the little magic of the Uber driver having 100.9 on the radio. And then when I got back to Los Angeles, my sister and I are talking about Frida on her birthday. So that was like, a full circle moment. That was just bizarre. Now, the way that I knew that it was Frida Kahlo's birthday is you see, after that phone call with my sister, I hung up the phone and I just thought it was interesting that those postcards were staring back at me. Postcards that were portraits of Frida staring back at me as my sister and I are talking about Frida. Hung up the phone. I was tired. I laid down and rested for a few hours. When I woke up, a few hours later, I was looking through Instagram and then I came across a picture of Frida Kahlo. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Here's Frida again. And then that's when I read the caption, and the caption said, Happy birthday, Frida. And I then went to Wikipedia to say, when is Frida Kahlo's birthday? Because, sometimes if you look at Instagram, you might look at a post from a day before, or 2 days before or something like that. You're like catching up on someone else's post, you know? And there it was when I looked that information up, it was like July 6th. And I was like, whoa. So it was July 6th, 2017, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't checked Frida Kahlo's birthday. Got the computer right in front of me. I guess I can do that. Let's do it. Frida Kahlo, July 6th, exactly. She was born July 6th, 1907. All right. And so yeah, that was pretty creepy. I was like, oh my gosh. So I called my sister back later that day. I said, did you know that today was Frida Kahlo's birthday? Earlier today when we were talking on the phone, did you know when we had that conversation that we were talking about Frida on her birthday? And my sister was like, nah, I had no idea. I just asked you about Frida because you were in Mexico and Frida's an icon. So I just asked you. And I said, whoa, that's wild. So yeah. So even though I'm making a big deal about 10-9, we even have the spirit of Frida Kahlo giving me a shout out, big up, saying keep going with 109, brother. Keep doing your thing. What happened? Phone is listening to the conversation. Got a message pop up. What is this? Oh, this app is still working. She over here shaking her money maker. I love it, girl. Go get it. Um, my Uber app is speak of the devil. Speak of Uber. My Uber app is still on. I'm still online accepting trips or whatever. Speak of the devil. Frida Kahlo. Now the thing about Frida also is that she died in 1954. Now if you want to do some mental gymnastics, 1 and 9 equals 10. 5 plus 4 equals 9. She died in a 10-9, in a 109 year. Interesting. Um, all right. Wow, she died at 47 years old. I'm 46 years old. My goodness. Man, you gotta be thankful for life, thankful for the breath in your lungs, thankful to be alive. Okay, so I was talking about my Latin American trips, and I was trying to tell you about these moments when 109 stood out for me. And I was moving you from Mexico, where I had this moment with Frida Kahlo. It was the Uber, the taxi with 100.9 on the FM dial. That was a reference to 109. And then after the whole Latin American trip, we have that moment with Frida Kahlo on her birthday, which was like bizarre. But I told you all of that just to resonate, just so that Frida's spirit and her story can all be taken together to say, wow, this is something, interesting, remarkable. All right. If only just coincidences. All right. So now we move to Cuba because I went from Mexico to Cuba. I'm still talking about the year 2017. Yeah, I traveled to 17 countries. 17 countries that year, right? Mexico, then I went to Cuba. I went to Cuba twice. Just for clarity, I want to be very specific, very technically precise, okay? It wasn't on my first trip, but it was my second trip to Cuba, right? So the chronological order, I'm going to tell you about Mexico. I'm going to tell you about Cuba. Wait a minute. Went to Mexico, then I went to Cuba, then I went to Peru. And then I made my way all the way back to Saudi Arabia, and then I came back to Cuba. A lot of travel. 17. So because it didn't happen on my first trip to Cuba, I will tell you about Peru. We'll skip to Peru, and then I'll come back to Cuba. In Peru, I went to Cusco, and then I went to Machu Picchu, the city of Machu Picchu. And I hiked up Machu Picchu. I hiked up Machu Picchu, and I arrived at Machu Picchu at the summit at 10:09 a.m. All right? So there it was again, 10:09. I'll give you some more details so that you understand what was happening. First, before I even went to Peru, I talked with a cousin of mine, actually a friend of the family. And he told me that he had been to Machu Picchu. And he said, look, make sure that you spend enough time up there. Make sure that you meditate up there. Make sure that you take in all of God's glory when you're up there. You're going to feel a presence up there that's just going to be magical. He said something to the effect, the spirits will talk to you. And I was like, whoa. So I said, okay, I've got to give myself enough time to appreciate Machu Picchu because magical things are going to happen. That was my expectation. So I got to Peru, got to Cusco, then I got to Machu Picchu, and finally hiked all the way up to Montaña Machu Picchu. It was about an hour's hike. Could have taken the bus, and in fact, the following day I did take the bus up there, but I wanted the experience to be that much more significant. So I hiked, I walked. You can do it, anyone can do it. There's a pathway right there. You have choices. You can walk or you could take the bus. If you're older, take the bus. If you're younger, you want an adventure, walk. It took me an hour to walk up to the entrance gate. At the entrance gate, I paid my fee, I entered, and then I hiked up. Thereafter, I hiked for 2 hours all the way up to the summit. It's called Montaña Machu Picchu. Okay. When I got to Montaña Machu Picchu, after a 2 hour, after actually a 3 hour hike, I took in God's glory, the magical views. Everything was magnificent. And then, of course, I took my little photos here and there. I noticed there was a young woman who had beat me there. So she was already meditating up there, and she had like the best seat in the house atop the mountain. I was like, well, what do I do? Do I sit here and wait for her to finish meditating to snag that spot? Because people are arriving at the summit every few minutes, every few moments. There's another group coming up there. So like the foot traffic is deep. And you can't just stay up there all day, you know. You gotta get yours and then you gotta get out. So while I was up there, um, got my photos and trying to figure out what to do. I sat there, I ate an apple, I believe, and talked with some foreigners, some other people who had made the journey as well. And I said to myself, I've done everything that I basically could do here. I looked around, I've taken in the sights, I've got some photo evidence that I was here. Now, what do I do? And up until that point, I hadn't heard anything from the spirits. I didn't have a spiritual revelation or anything, didn't feel the presence of God, none of that. I was just like, ugh, I did it. That's when I looked at my watch. Not my watch, but my cell phone. I looked at my cell phone clock. And then that's when I had a revelation. You see, when I looked at the clock, it was 10:08 a.m. So I had been at the summit for a few minutes there. So I actually did not summit the mountain at 10:09 a.m. No, I summited it uh, several minutes before that, maybe 10 minutes before that. But when I checked my watch, it was 10:08 a.m. It struck me as a very peculiar moment. The fact that I had looked at the clock at 10:08, just 1 minute before 10:09, it hit me like I am in a rhythm. I'm following a rhythm, following a path. I'm hitting these notes right on time. I'm these what is it? Time. What is time called? Temporal. These temporal points. I'm hitting them on time. I'm hitting these temporal notes when they need to be struck. It's right. I'm right on time. And I'm like, wow. That's when I realized that even though it was 10:08 and I was struggling to figure out what to do next, I decided the spirits did talk to me. Or rather, I decided the spirits have been talking to me through these numbers. That's my spiritual connection through these numbers. And it's not a coincidence that I just looked at the clock at 10:08 a.m. atop Machu Picchu. So I said, you know what? I'm going to stay within my tradition. My tradition is 10:09. Those are my numbers, 10:09. Now, I could have stayed atop Machu Picchu and said at 10:09 a.m. I'm going to make a wish. At 10:09 I'm going to drink some water. At 10:09 I'm going to drink a beer. Like I don't know. I could have made a big point of celebrating 10:09 in that moment, but what I said, what I decided was 10:09, 1 minute from the moment that I checked my watch, my clock. I'm going to go down the mountain. I'm going to start my descent going down. It was like a place marker for me. It was like, you go down the mountain at that point. Okay. You go down. It's a place marker. I said, damn, there we go. But I was very clear about the spirits having spoken to me through the numbers 10 and 9. And at 10:09 a.m., I said, that's it. We're going down the mountain, which I did. I followed the tradition. And the tradition is just follow those numbers, be mindful of those numbers, you know, and that was it. I said, good. I saw the numbers atop Machu Picchu. Now I can go down. I know the spirits are with me. I got it. Let's go. So I go down the mountain. That's what happened in Peru. So I had a 10-9 moment in Mexico. I had a 10-9 moment in Peru. First time I was in Cuba, I don't recall anything happening. It was the second time that I went to Cuba because the first time I went to Cuba, I stayed 4 days and I bought fake cigars accidentally. I got scammed. When I discovered the cigars were fake, I bought the cigars for as a gift from my father. I gave them to my dad, and after I discovered they were fake, I told my dad, throw those away, get rid of them, don't share those, they're fake. I said, Dad, I'm going back to Cuba to rectify the situation. I said, okay, son. So a few months later, I had another vacation and I flew back. I was living in Saudi Arabia at the time, getting that good Arab money. Arab money. I was balling. I had the money. So when it came time for my 2 week vacation or whatever, I said I'm going back to Cuba. I'm flying halfway around the globe, going back to Cuba, get the genuine cigars, which I did. I got the genuine cigars for my dad, and while I was there, the second time I was there, um, bought a copy of the Motorcycle Diaries by Che Guevara, and something magical happened when I bought that book. So there I was in Cuba, in Havana, Cuba, one night, and I decided to open the book and start reading. I began reading the book, and within the first few pages of the book, that's when I learned that Che Guevara had died. He was killed on October 9th in 9. And so when I learned that fact, and I was in Havana, Cuba, I thought, wow, look at the synchronicity. Look at the synchronous manner in which I learned about this. I learned about Che Guevara's death on my birthday, 12 years before my actual birthday, 12 years before I was born. On my birthday, 10/9, October 9th, Che Guevara was murdered. But I'm learning about it in Havana, Cuba, the country where he led his revolution. So it just hit even harder, even more. It was more significant that I was in the country where he led the revolution that I learned this 109 connection, right? And then what's also fascinating is the book tells you that not only was it on October 9th, but it tells you that he was captured on October 8th, as if his capture was more significant than his assassination. So the way it tells you in the book is Che was captured on October 9th, excuse me, on October 8th, and the following day he was murdered. That's all they say. The next day he was murdered. So as you're reading this, you're putting it together. There's nothing to really put together, but it was 10/9. It was October 8th. Damn, I did it again. October 8th, he was captured. October 9th, he was murdered. 10/8, 10/9. So there I was in Cuba getting this information. And for me, that night that I was reading the book, just to read that the man whose life I'm reading about, just to read that he was killed on the day that I was born, 12 years apart, of course, 12 years apart. But that connection, it gave me goosebumps, hair on the back of my neck, so, as it were, stood up. And I was like, whoa, it's intense, man. It's intense that I grabbed this book, that I decided to read it. As I'm reading it, I get this information, this you know, I learned this coincidence. Like, right? So now I've told you three instances in 2017, that big year of travel for me in Mexico, Peru, and Cuba. 109 hit me, resonated with me in these new parts of the globe. Okay. Same year, 2017, I flew to Sri Lanka from Saudi Arabia. As I mentioned before, I traveled a lot in 2017, 17 countries. Sri Lanka. I go to Sri Lanka. I don't see 109. I don't see 10-9. I mean, yeah, I saw 10, I saw 9, but I didn't see 109. It didn't, there wasn't an apparent moment where it was like, here we are again, we meet again. No. And let me tell you, let me be very, very clear. The moments when I encountered 109, 10-9, 109, these are not moments that I am searching for. No, these are moments of serendipity. And you're not looking for it and it presents itself. Only within the last few months did I learn where the word serendipity came from. The word serendipity comes from the country of Sri Lanka. Isn't that curious? What a coincidence. Fascinating. Serendip. I'm reading from Google. AI overview says Serendip is an old name for Sri Lanka, derived from the Sanskrit Simhalad Vitpa and popularized by Arabic and Persian traders as Serendib. Is also the etymological root of the English word serendipity, which English writer Horace Walpole coined in 1754, based on a Persian fairy tale about princes from Serendip who made unexpected discoveries. Unexpected discoveries. So there I was in Sri Lanka, not having a serendipitous moment with 109, 10-9. But what happened? I left Sri Lanka. I flew back to Saudi Arabia. And after a year's worth of travel, because my trip to Sri Lanka was in December 2017. For a year's trip, years long travel journeys all over the globe, 17 countries in the year 2017. In Sri Lanka, the country of serendipity, I didn't find 10-9. But on my way back, returning to Saudi Arabia where I lived, I was exiting the airport, waiting for a taxi, when I had the most bizarre encounter with 10-9 yet. Think about the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Pull it up. I'm going to pull it up. YouTube. Let's Brave. So we don't have to listen to any commercials. Should have had this prepared, but you see, this is impromptu. This isn't. This isn't. This is. What is that thing called? It's called. No.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video,
Thank you, Keenan Lambert. But I'm looking for the Fresh Prince of Bel Air theme song. I had the most bizarre experience on returning. Okay, this is what happened. Let's listen. Give it to me. There might be some copyright issues. I'll play this. Turn it down. Yeah, this is what happened. Sit right there. I'll tell you how I ran into 10-9 in Saudi Arabia. That's the story. It's fascinating. It coincides with the experience. It coincides with the experience detailed by Will Smith. It's crazy. But we're up to no good. Okay, now listen to what happens to him. Moving with you. Now listen. Whoops, this is the long version. Hang on. Ticket.
first class. Yo, this is bad. Drinking orange juice out of a champagne glass. Is this what the people of Bel Air living like? This might be alright. I whistled for a cab, and when it came near, the license plate said fresh and it had dice in the mirror. If anything, I could say that this cab was rare, but I thought, man, forget it. Yo, home's the Bel Air.
I'm gonna stop it right there. This is phenomenal because that he just described exactly what happened to me upon my arrival, upon my return from Sri Lanka. Here's what happened to me. I go through customs in Saudi Arabia, where I'm living, where I'm working at that time. Get my bag, and I go to the curb to wait for a taxi to be matched with a taxi. That's how it works there. In many countries, that's how it works. In America, you wait for your you call a taxi, right? But in many countries, you just stand at the taxi stand, and then the car will pull up. The next car will pull up is your car. So there I was waiting for my taxi, thinking about 10-9 and saying to myself, I haven't seen 10-9. I didn't see it in Sri Lanka. I must be free from this 10-9 experience. When my taxi pulled up and I noticed that my taxi, the one that I would be getting into on the license plate, the license plate read 10 and 9, blah 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 blah. First three numbers were 10 and 9. Blew my mind. I was like, yo, I didn't see it in Sri Lanka, but I'm back from Sri Lanka and here it is. And you really have to wonder, like, had I been a minute or two earlier or a minute or two later, right? I would not have been matched with that particular car. But there I was being perfectly matched with that number, that license plate on that car. Now listen to the lyrics. I'm gonna recite them. I'm gonna read them. Okay, he says, so he got off the plane and he said, I whistled for a cab, and when it came near, the license plate said fresh, and it had dice in the mirror. If anything, I could say this cab was rare. Now forget it, your home's to Bel Air. So in that theme song, Will Smith is describing himself as the Fresh Prince arriving at the airport and then being matched with a taxi that, like his name, Fresh, has fresh on the license plate. So that character, the Fresh Prince, is matched with a car that resonates with him by name. He sees himself on that license plate. I saw myself on that license plate. When I saw the numbers 109, I'm like, yo, that's me. That's my birthday. Those are the digits. Those are the numbers that I keep seeing all around the world. Like, yo, how'd that happen? It was another moment of paranoia for me because I'm like, someone know where I am? Are they subtly letting me know that they're keeping tabs on me wherever I travel around the globe? And they just put those numbers, hey, we know where you are, buddy, okay, at all times.
You are now listening to the IC 109 podcast.
So the fact that the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, that Will Smith and the Fresh Prince of Bel Air and their theme song used that experience to describe, the significance of the car of that particular taxi to him, to his journey, is cool. Very, very cool. But then the even crazier part is that the TV show is about the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. And it was a number of years after I had this experience when I was in standing in line behind a woman who was wearing a Bel Air Fire Department hat, for the Bel Air Fire Department. And I noticed her hat because on it, it had those familiar numbers 1, 0, and 9, or 10 9 as I like to call it. You dig?
Welcome. You are now listening to the 10-9 podcast.
Just doing some station identification, y'all. You dig? So I see 10 9 on her hat, and I'm like, yo, lady, those are my numbers. That's my birthday. I see these numbers in crazy, mysterious ways and stuff. And I'm like, what's so important about those numbers 109 to you? This woman says, the Bel Air Fire Department station is number 109. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. That's crazy. Because in the Fresh Prince of Bel Air song is a description of an experience that I actually had. And he says, yo, home's to Bel Air. And the Bel Air Fire Department is 109. Incredible. Incredible. And true. All true. So, where do we go from here? Excuse me, my throat is scratching. I wish I could edit that out, but oh, sorry. Maybe turn the mic off and then do this. Give me a few seconds as I do some station identification and clear my throat.
You're at 109 right now.
Listening to the IC 10-9 podcast. Welcome. You are now listening to the 10-9 podcast.
You're at 109 right now.
Hey, baby! Welcome to the IC 10-9 podcast. This is gonna be a groovy shindig. Welcome, pimps, players, women of the night, and anybody else interested in 10-9.
Yeah, so 2017, lots of travel, seeing those numbers. It all started from Korea. I'm a little hesitant to say Korea because it happened when I was in Los Angeles first, but Korea, then Japan, then all these other countries. I told you about Bahrain, yep. Told you about Saudi Arabia, Cuba, Mexico, Peru, um, Ethiopia, 2018 in Ethiopia. I was at a museum on the second floor of this building, went to the bathroom, down a hall. On my way, I passed the room with number 109 on it, written on the door. It caught my eye. I said, oh my gosh, what's 109 doing here? Took a picture of the door, went to the bathroom. I said, is 109 important like 109 is important in Japan? What do the Ethiopians think about those numbers 109? I don't know. And then, like, I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know for a long time, actually. I have a friend in Ethiopia who went to that building and he did some research for me. I said, please find out why they wrote number 109 on the door. And apparently he said that the guy behind those are offices behind that door. The guy whose office is behind that door, well, he wrote those numbers there because he's a college professor and students would come to that door, to that office, and they would know that that was his office because of those numbers. I thought that was interesting. 109 written on the door. Now, mind you, we're on the second floor, and that room number is 201-202. There are two offices behind that door. Office number 201, office number 202. However, whomever worked behind those doors decided to write 109 on that door, as I mentioned, to inform students or whatever. That's the room. So we're on the second floor, and 109 is not supposed to be there at all, and yet it was written up there. So you dig? You dig? Just like a minute earlier or a minute later in Saudi Arabia, that taxi would have gone to someone else. Just like what a coincidence it was for me to be atop Machu Picchu at and check my clock at 10:08 a.m. only to decide I'm going down the mountain at 10:09 p.m. What a coincidence it was to be in Cuba and pick up a book by a Cuban revolutionary and discover that he was killed on 10/9. What a coincidence that I would get assigned a taxi in Mexico City and the taxi driver was listening to 100.9 on the radio dial. What an interesting coincidence. But it doesn't stop there. So there I was in Ethiopia and that happened. And that was just a head scratcher for me. Like, it's bizarre. I must say at this point, I've been to two Japanese cities. I mean, I've been to more, but I want to make it clear. I've been to these two Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I want to tell this story now because it connects with the story in Ethiopia about the door with 109 written on it. You see, I'll try to say this as quickly as possible. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were cities bombed by the atomic bomb created by the United States. The project that led to the creation of the atomic bombs, it was called the Manhattan Project. It was led by Robert J. Oppenheimer, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a secret project. It was extremely secretive, clandestine, clandestine project that involved the creation of the whole atomic bomb and all that kind of stuff in New Mexico, state in the United States, in New Mexico. And the thing about it is, all of the scientists who were a part of the project, they were sent to one address. And that address was 109 East Palace. Once they got to that address, then they were secretly assigned a new location to go to. But all of the scientists first traveled to address 109 East Palace in Santa Fe, New Mexico. That's a significant detail because the door that all of those scientists had to pass through had the numbers 10 and 9 on it, written or affixed to the door 109. So I'm telling this story right after telling the story about 109, that door with 109 on it in Ethiopia. Now, certainly there's no connection based upon the countries, right? The only connection is the door with 109 on it. And I guess that's it. But when I was in Ethiopia, remember, I looked at that and I said, "Well, dang, the only other time 109 held any significance for me was in Japan. I wonder what the Japanese, I wonder no, I said I wonder if the Ethiopians think about 109 or 109 the way the Japanese do." Because when I was in Tokyo, it was everywhere. 109, Tokyo, Shibuya Ichimaruku, Tokyo Hands, Tokyo Plaza, all of that was 109, 109, 109, everywhere that I looked. So I thought, well, maybe it's the same thing in Ethiopia. But it's interesting that when I was there in Ethiopia, I thought of Japan. And sure enough, the connection was with Japan because of that door. I'm trying to build something here that maybe doesn't exist, but man, if you're watching the movie about these 109 moments, I'm going to cut from Ethiopia to Uh, I'm gonna flash back to the 1940s when they're developing the bomb after 2018, and you see me standing in front of that door wondering, well, what the heck does that have to what the heck is the significance of 109 in Ethiopia? And then cut to Japan, the Manhattan Project, 1940s, and all the scientists going through the door with 109 on it. And then the connection to me is the fact that I visited those two cities where those bombs have been dropped. So the history, the reality is very real to me. It's like, man, it's right here. History isn't even in the past. It's right here. All right. So Ethiopia, 109. Let's see. Other countries, 2017, 2018. 2018, I was in Saudi Arabia. I left Saudi Arabia, came back to America, Colombia, Costa Rica, Panama. Okay, I've got stories about Colombia and Panama. I'm in Colombia and I go to sleep one night. Medellin, Colombia. Go to sleep one night around 9 o'clock, and I happen to wake up at exactly 1:09 a.m. Medellin, Colombia, 1:09 a.m. Again, that's a moment of pause for me because I'm like, whoa, why am I waking up at this hour? What's happening to me in Medellin? Nothing's happening to me in Medellin. There were no loud bangs, no fireworks, no alarm, nothing went on. I just woke up, grabbed my cell phone to check the time, and it was exactly 1:09 a.m., which I thought was highly bizarre.
You are now listening to the IC109 podcast.
Because I see 10:09. So there I was in Medellin, Colombia, seeing 10:09. Like, okay, here we go again.
You're at 109 right now.
All right, so then nothing happened. I just spent some time in Colombia. Um, this is out of chronological order because actually, when I was in Panama, um, what happened to me in Panama related to 10:09? Oh, yes. 10:09. So I was in Panama, and there I was at this. I'll spare you the details. I go into this hotel, and I am ushered to this room, into this room. Now, as I'm being ushered to this room, I'm noticing that we're passing up room number 1, room number 2, 3, 4. We're just walking down this hallway, and I'm being ushered to this room. I don't know which room I'm being ushered to. And finally, we get down the hall, and I see on the door that I'm entering door number 10 or room 10, and immediately to the right is door 9. So I'm like, "Oh my gosh, here I am again. I'm being ushered into this room, room 10." And as I look up, I see this room is 10 and the one right next to it is 9, and I see it that way. 10 is on the left, 9 is on the right. It's not 9 and then 10, but it's 10 9. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, here we are again. Here we meet again." I'm actually talking about 2018, but I didn't tell you about what happened in 2015 in Japan. Now in 2015, I was in Japan. It was the weekend before my birthday, and I took the ferry from Korea to Japan. 3-hour ferry. It no longer operates. They shut it down. They shut it down a few years ago actually. It had a great run, and those trips were so affordable. You can get from between Korea and Japan for like $30. It was a 3-hour trip, of course, but it was only $30 minimum. Sometimes 30, sometimes 60, sometimes 100, but usually, if you caught it at the right time, you could get there for like $30 round trip. Beautiful experience. Anywho, it's the weekend before my birthday, so I take this trip from Korea to Japan. One night, I'm hungry, I'm awake. I get up and I go to the Japanese ramen restaurant, Ichiran. I go to Ichiran. There's a kiosk there. Put my money in. I order my ramen. I get my tickets. And there's an usher standing there. And the usher is like, come on in. I'll seat you. They have a row of booths. And the usher was like, follow me. And he led me to seat number 10. And here I was again, like, yo, 10. I'm getting seated at row 10. Now, the thing about it is, there were other seats that were available, but he chose to seat me at 10. Now, when he seated me there at 10, at seat number 10, I did not know that 10 means heaven and that I was actually in Tenjin, the city called Heavenly God. I didn't know that, but he certainly sat me at number 10 even when there were seats available. Seats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever the seats numbers were, they were available. There were some other customers there, but the vast majority of seats were available. So much so, it was a head scratcher. Why are you seating me in number 10? Whatever. And it's the week before my birthday. So I sit down at seat number 10 and I look up and I see the number 10 written in Japanese, which is a cross. And then I see to the right, because in Japanese, they write from left. No, they write from right to left. Unlike in English, we write from right to left. Excuse me, I said that wrong. In English, we write from left to right. In Japanese, they write from right to left. So the numbers were in ascending order from right to left. So to the right of the number 10 was the number 9. So when I sat down, when he seated me at seat number 10, I looked up and I could see 10 and 9 written in Japanese. How did I know they were 10 and 9? Well, I had been studying the Japanese numbers. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. 10 and 9, look at that. This was 1 week before my birthday. So I was already thinking, maybe it was the subconscious. My subconscious was screaming out to other subconsciouses. Give him seat number 10. His birthday is next week. He must have a connection to 10 and 9. Give him seat number 10. And maybe the usher's subconscious picked up on it and he was like, okay, this lonely guy in our city, I'll give you what you want. You want to sit at seat 10? Here you go. Look up, there's 10 and 9, just like your birthday. Okay, enjoy the food. I'm gone. So that happened one night. I ate my food and I walked out of there. I took my pictures. I took pictures of the numbers 10 and 9 because I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. When I was leaving on the same trip, I was going to take the ferry back to Korea. I went to the ferry terminal, got my ticket. As I examined my ticket, I noticed that the ferry that I was riding on was ferry number 109. I said, damn, here's 10-9 again. My ferry number. I'm on the ferry that's taking me back. It's 109. Wow. I took a picture of that as evidence. Like, look, it just keeps happening. 10-9. It just keeps happening, y'all.
You are now listening to the IC109 podcast.
So I got on ferry, made it back to Korea, got off the ferry and jumped on the train. Now on the train, I go to get my ticket and I get a seat assignment in row 10. In row 10, y'all. And I'm like, it happened again. So there I was, boarding the train. I look up, I look at my seat assignment. I'm like, I got assigned a seat in row 10. And what was even more bizarre with this one was on the train, not all of the seats were filled. They were not assigned. So I'm looking at basically an empty train car, and I've been assigned a seat in row 10. And I'm like, again, scratching my head, like, couldn't I have been seated in row 1, 7, 20? Why row 10? And as I sat in row 10 and I looked up, once again, just like at the Japanese ramen joint, ramen restaurant, I was in row 10, and to the right was row 9. So I looked up and I saw 10 9. Took another photo as evidence. Like, man, it just keeps happening. I just keep seeing it. Now, mind you, the reason why I paid attention, I wasn't looking. I wasn't looking for 109, 10 9. But the reason I was paying attention to it is because it was my birthday. My birthday was coming up. And I just thought, wow, these are interesting moments where I keep seeing my birthday. And that's what happened. Those were true stories. All right. So I had to skip around. So I went back to 2015. Those things happened in 2015. Back to 2018, Ethiopian story that actually harkens back to Japan. Okay. 2018, I told you about Colombia and in Panama. 2019. Now, 2019 comes around. Oh man, 2019 comes around, and this is bizarre. Now, it really gets bizarre. If you thought the stories were bizarre, and I still have more stories to go, wait till you hear about what happened in 2022. Man, wait till I tell you what happened just a few days ago or whatever. Let me just skip around. Okay. A few days ago, over a week ago now, I was driving for Uber, and I was talking to the guy, telling him my stories. And just as I told him that, I would see the numbers 109, a car happened to just jump in front of us with license plate 109 on it. And I said, see, like this moment, the guy's jaw dropped. He was like, yo, I can't believe that happened. So he got out of the car. We shook hands. He was like, man, that your story is incredible. And the fact that we saw 109 together, yeah, that was just crazy. That just happened a week or so ago. 09. I was with the Germans day before yesterday. Picked up some Germans. I was driving from Uber. I was driving. I'm an Uber driver these days, and I dropped them off. And throughout the ride, I had a whole a little bit of a conversation, but I was using a lot of German, and I was really thinking about my German cousins. And I just had really great memories of visiting them in 2018. And after they got out of my car, as I was trying to reroute, go back to wherever, I noticed the car. I noticed that where I dropped them off, there was a car parked there with numbers 109 on the license plate. And I'm like, wow. It was a very beautiful experience to have Germans in my car, to think about my German cousins, to interact with these people, to think about, the trip that I took to Germany, and then bam, to see 109 as well. Because for where I dropped them off, for where I was, I could have driven them, could have dropped them off somewhere else and not seen 109, but it was just seemed like it was meant to be, so that I would see 109. And seeing 109 in those moments, they are very special indeed. I don't feel like as if I'm haunted by 109. I feel like these are moments of mindfulness. I see it, I'm aware of it. You know? So those are some recent ones. So let's get back to what happened in the past. 2019. All right, 2019. Okay, I brought in the new year 2019 in Colombia because in 2018 I went from Costa Rica to Panama to Colombia, and then I went back to LA before flying to where the hell did I fly to? Oman. Oman, I got a job in Oman. Um, I was in Colombia. I think I was in Colombia and started applying for jobs. I found a job in Oman, flew back to LA. I applied for the job from Los Angeles. The interview didn't go so well, but they hired me anyway, which I thought, oh, that's good news. I got hired. So they fly me out to Oman, fly KLM, and fly KLM, and I get to Amsterdam first. Then I continue on to Oman. I'm doing this after I've worked 2 years in Saudi Arabia. 2 beautiful years where I saved a lot of money and I did very well for myself in Saudi Arabia. But now that I'm going to Oman, I'm going to Oman to maintain my standard of living because after leaving Saudi Arabia, well, I started to spend money. And I actually went to Costa Rica so that I would slow down the loss of money. Because when I was in Costa Rica, I was living in the jungle. So I didn't pay much to live there. Actually, no, I didn't pay anything. It was free. And living there for free, I lived there for free in exchange for work. So every day we would do 4 hours of work and we could just live there for free on this little farm. The farm they run a business, a night tour business. And so um, the trails that the tourists walk on, they need to be cleared so they don't trip for these night tours. So that was our job, mostly to clear the trails for them. We did that. Um, so yeah, I spent 3 weeks in the jungle trying not to lose my money. Right? Got to Panama, then I got to Colombia, then I was running out of money, and I was like, oh, I got to get back to reality. I've got to get back to working. So I flew back to Los Angeles. I interviewed to work in Oman. So I was going back to Oman to earn some more money. I would be paid something 2,000 plus dollars a month. 3,000, 2,000, 2,000 or something like this. It was far less than what I was making in Saudi Arabia, but it wasn't too bad. I could pay bills, I could still work and pay and maintain a lifestyle and keep the money that I had earned, that I had saved, you know. I wasn't really going down. I was still because in Colombia, in Panama and in Costa Rica, I had to sometimes pay to eat and I had to pay to travel. If I had just gone to Oman, well, unfortunately, I would have to pay for my rent, but I was out I also what I paid was offset by what I was earning. Whereas in Colombia, Panama, and Costa Rica, I wasn't earning any money. That's what I'm saying. I get to Oman and I'm earning some money. Life is good again. As soon as I arrive in Oman, I have to sign my work contract. I go to the office where you have to sign the contract, and I'm confronted with the sight of a car parked outside this building with the number 109 on the license plate. And I'm like, wow, 109, there it is. How I felt in that moment, I was exasperated. I was tired. I was like, here I am. I just flew halfway around the globe chasing some money. And this is exhausting. I don't, I have no connection to this land whatsoever. But here I am, just trying to chase a paycheck. And then I was like, um, I was like, when am I going to be in the position to, command what happens to me in life? When am I going to be in the position to say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this. I'm going here. I'm going there. Rather than, I've got to go over there because they have some money for me. Oh, I can't go over there because I don't have enough money. Like money just, I didn't like the constraint of it because when I was in Saudi Arabia, money was not an object. I, in 2017, I traveled to 17 countries. Like, I'm going so and so next week. I'm going to Sri Lanka next week. Booked it. We gonna do it. I'm going to Turkey. I'm going to Dubai. I'm going to. Man, it was incredible. So, I get to Oman and I'm like, dang, I've got a little bit of in savings. I have a lot in savings actually, but still need to work. There I am. I saw 109 outside of the at the office. So I thought I used that to say 109 is a good luck charm for me. 109 means don't fret, don't be scared, don't be sad. 109 is with you. And sure enough, 109 was absolutely with me. So I was like, okay, put aside any worries, put aside any doubts. You are traveling on the right path. This is the path that you're supposed to be on. Good for you. Keep going. I said, okay. So I signed the contract. I go to my new hometown, and that was after the first 109 incident in Oman. But then 109 presented itself again to me. Excuse me. It was April 1st. In America, that would be April Fool's Day. There was nothing foolish about this day. There was nothing different country, different holidays, right? Nothing foolish about this day. But it's April 1st. I wake up and I go to work. My routine was get up, get dressed, get out of the house, get in the car, and be on your way by 7:30 a.m. So I remember it was around 7:30 a.m. I left home, and it took me only maybe 8 minutes to get to work, an 8 minute drive, very short drive. But I remember no one was on the road, and I was making my way to work when, as I was approaching a roundabout, there was one other car. It was actually a truck on the road that I noticed, and I said, you know what? That truck is going at a incredibly fast speed. Like if they approach this roundabout as I'm approaching it, they should be courteous enough to slow down because hey, they should see me. Well, I don't know. I'm sure he saw me, but he didn't care. He blew right through this roundabout and the guy basically cut me off. Now I became angry. I was like, what the hell with this guy? Why would he do that? And that was such a dangerous move too. He was barreling down the road and then with no concern for the other driver because at that hour there were no other cars on the road but mine and his. He just was inconsiderate and cut in front of me and kept going on his way. I was angry in that moment until I saw his license plate. Do you know that 1090 was his license plate? 1090. And I was like, I can't be mad at this dude. He's got my numbers on the license plate. And that actually happened. Now, the thing about it, though, is my emotional state. I went from being sad that morning to then being cut off and being angry to then feeling a watershed of coolness and calmness when I saw 109. Let me explain. The sadness came because that morning I woke up, I checked Instagram, and I learned about what had transpired the night before when I was sleeping. And it's curious that I was sleeping on my floor and not in my bed. See, that night, or maybe a previous night, I had decided that the bed was too firm, too uncomfortable to sleep on. So for a number of nights, I had been sleeping on the floor at the foot of the bed. I laid a mat down, a thin mat, laid my pillow and blankets on the floor, and I was sleeping on the floor in my bedroom, not on my bed. When I woke up, I grabbed my cell phone that particular morning, sometime around 6 in the morning, 6:30, whatever, and I kept seeing images of Nipsey Hussle, rapper. So I was like, dang, why is everyone posting pictures of Nipsey Hussle on my Instagram feed? And then I saw one of my friends post. You see, when other people are posting his picture, I mean, I don't know those people, so I don't really know, what's really going on. Maybe he's dropped an album, maybe there's some good news and everybody's on his tip. But then I read my friend's post and I read the caption, and he had the prayer emoji, prayer hand emoji. He said prayers up for Nipsey. He was a really good dude. And the past tense, he was a really good dude, hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, was past tense, what's going on? That's when I went to the internet and I started searching up Nipsey Hussle and discovered that he had been killed. He had been shot. I never met Nipsey, but his death hit me hard. Even though I wasn't even in Los Angeles, I was thousands of miles away. His death resonated with me, hit me deeply because I was saddened to see young man's flame of life be extinguished. And tears came to my eyes. So I was sad that morning that I woke up, was driving to work. Then I was angry because this man cut me off. But then sadness and anger washed away when I saw my 109. And that all happened in the desert of Oman. And what I thought in that moment was I immediately flashed back to, I was thinking of Nipsey. I immediately flashed back to my trips and my travels to Ethiopia because during the month of March 2019, my attention on East Africa was heightened. Let me explain. 2019 March was a tremendously sad, devastating month for East Africans. When I say East Africans, I'm referring to Ethiopians, Eritreans in particular, but that can also be extended to folks from Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya. Yeah, absolutely, Kenya too. Here's why. Because in March of 2019, there was a Ethiopian Airlines plane crash. And on March 10th, many lives were claimed in this, and it made the international news. I was in Oman when I learned of this news. Seth, my former colleague, Seth, sent me a message saying, "Hey, did you see the news? Check out what happened to the Ethiopian Airlines, airplane or whatever." Seth and I worked together in Saudi Arabia. Seth had been to Ethiopia before me. Seth has a love for Ethiopia. injera food, Ethiopian women, Ethiopian culture. Seth loves Ethiopia. Seth's love and appreciation for Ethiopia rubbed off on me. Seth, as well as another one of our colleagues, Gable. Seth and Gable had been to Ethiopia before me, and they're about my age, so we were able to talk about Ethiopia. So I was very big on traveling, on flying with Ethiopian Airlines. It was a source of pride for me. Fly Ethiopian Airlines. Look, all of the steward, all of the flight attendants are black people. Mostly the passengers are black people. Look at this. This is a beautiful experience. If you've never had an experience like that, you should definitely try it. All black. Um, so I was very much in support of Ethiopian Airlines, and I caught when Seth told me about the crash, I was devastated, personally devastated, because I actually had plans to travel to Eritrea um sometime very recently. I was like, we're gonna have a vacation time, a week or two come up. I need some place to go. I think a good place to go would be Eritrea to travel. Wanted to do that. I had serious plans of visiting Eritrea in March. But when I learned and on top of that, I was going to fly Ethiopian Airlines to get there. But once I heard of this airplane crash, I was done with Ethiopian Airlines. I was like, man, I don't know if I want to take that chance. And so, absolutely, my plans were, my plans changed. You didn't hear me talk about I'm going to go to Ethiopia or Eritrea, and I'm certainly not going to fly Ethiopian Airlines, not after one of their planes crashed. But that happened in March of 2019. And then Nipsey Hussle was murdered in 2019 March. So these were two tragedies that happened in the same month, and they very much are connected to East Africa because you have Ethiopian Airlines, that's East Africa completely. And then Nipsey Hussle is the son of an Eritrean immigrant. So Nipsey, his bloodline is very much Eritrean. Mother is an African American woman, but his father was an Eritrean immigrant. And so Eritrea is an East African country. So for me, 2019 March belongs to East Africa. And there's another reason why, because that month was in my mind at least, that month was going to be a joyous month because was March 1st is the holiday upon which the Ethiopians celebrate the Battle of Adwa, a very proud, prestigious, significant battle victory. And so I was even reading a book about the Battle of Adwa because after my travels to Ethiopia, I had a new understanding of the world, a new perspective. And I was very much dismayed, saddened, disappointed that I had not learned about Ethiopia in school. I was learning new things and I was like, man, this is very powerful stuff to learn. See, if you watch the documentary by Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr., he did this documentary 30 some years ago where he traveled to Ethiopia, he traveled to Egypt, he traveled to Africa. He did this recently, but he did it a long time ago as well. But it's the one that he did a long time ago where he encountered uh minister the honorable minister Louis Farrakhan. He encountered him, I believe, in Ethiopia. He sat with him and he interviewed him. This video is on YouTube. And he asked him about Ethiopia And Minister Louis Farrakhan said that for black people to learn about Ethiopia's history and to learn that Ethiopians, a proud people, had defeated their European colonists is an incredibly significant moment. It's an incredibly significant thing to for them to realize, like, oh my gosh, the Ethiopians did not fall to their uh European European colonizers. Excuse me, I'm distracted. I am going to look for that video with Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. in yep, I found it, in Africa. So this is Wonders. It's entitled Wonders of the African World, Slave Kingdoms and Ethiopia. See how they did that? Slave kingdoms and Ethiopia. All right. The YouTube channel is Let's Unite Now. All right, let me find. I found it.
Africa, we found us.
Amazing. I just clicked to a point in the video and immediately I found it. I immediately found it. I didn't even have to search for it. There it was. Boom, immediately. So let's listen to the Right Honorable Louis Farrakhan, Minister Louis Farrakhan, as he talks about the Africans' reception or experience of learning about Ethiopia.
Cut the camera until we get inside. Okay. Sir, checking for weapons.
Oh, sure.
Would you turn that off, please?
It's my microphone.
Though I want you to know, I didn't like the article, but I thank you for writing about me and in your books and in the article. And I know that as time goes on, we'll do better and better and better.
I always do my best.
Thank you.
Maybe I
sir.
like one that you like. Maybe
This time, I asked him about Ethiopia.
Thanks a
Bless,
lot.
man.
God bless you.
Well, you know, most of us who were nationalistic in thought always looked to a scripture in the Bible that said that Ethiopia one day would stretch forth its hands. And as black people who never thought that we had a stake in the scriptures, but when we found Ethiopia, we found Africa, we found ourselves. So there's a special magic that Ethiopia has. Maybe I'm not using the right word, but it's mystical, it's magical. For black people, Ethiopia, that name, Haile Selassie, among the Rastafari, and among those of us who never saw a black monarch. We saw King George, we saw Queen Elizabeth, we saw all of the white kings and queens, but Haile Selassie gave us somebody that we could look to say, well, some of us were kings.
And there you have it. It's a magical moment when the black man, the African, who isn't taught in America, who doesn't get the proper education, when he makes the discovery, when he makes the connection between black man and greatness. In the case of Emperor, His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, it's magical. It'll straighten your back. You'll raise your head and you'll shake it off, whatever was troubling you, and say, these motherfuckers have been lying to me. They ain't been telling me who I truly am. They haven't been teaching me. Yes, it's the truth. So after my travels to Ethiopia, when I discovered the Battle of Adwa and the victory of Ethiopians over the Italian fascist colonizing armies and what have you, Menelik II. It was an awakening for me and a great sense of pride. I was imbued with a great sense of pride, and so much so that March 1st, 2019, the day upon which the Battle of Adwa victory is celebrated, I was filled with that same pride. But it was the result of my travels to Ethiopia, that I said I am connected to the Ethiopian people, and how they feel, I feel. So I was proud on March 1st. On March 10th, 9 days later, I was sad because the Ethiopian Airlines plane had crashed. I was sad. And then March 31st in America, April 1st in Oman, I was devastated, saddened by Nipsey Hussle's murder. But my point is, my attention was squarely upon East Africa in March 2019. And 10/9 had something to do with it because I had seen 10/9 when I had arrived in Oman. I had seen 10/9 the day that Nipsey was murdered, or the day that I learned of Nipsey's murder. I had seen 10/9 again in the most peculiar fashion. That truck that cut me off, only two cars on the road, my car and that truck, and the license plates were 109. Hmm. And in my mind, I was thinking of Nipsey that day, 109, Nipsey and 109. And I was like, why did I see 109 on the day that Nipsey was murdered? That's what I thought. That's what I was saying. What's the connection? What's going on? I don't understand. My numbers 109 are supposed to be good numbers, powerful numbers. They're for me. But on the same day that I'm affected deeply by Nipsey's demise, his murder, oh man, what's the connection? I couldn't make a connection. But my travels to Ethiopia informed me Nipsey is very special. Nipsey is a son of East Africa. Nipsey, okay? The reason you feel saddened, the reason that you cried for Nipsey is because he was a great man, great legacy. And I was just like, man, Nipsey and 109, that was in my mind. Now, what happened 7 days later, April 8th, on my way to work, same as I had done. Now let me tell you, that whole week that we lost Nipsey I was reeling because I remember I canceled a class or two because I was just way too devastated. I was deflated. That exactly describes how I felt. March 1st, I was inflated with pride. March 31st, April 1st, I was deflated. I said, my king is gone. Nipsey, I attached myself to Nipsey because he was doing great things. I saw the king in him, and it was just a powerful, illustrious, beautiful, magnificent demonstration. So I felt very deflated. I canceled classes, which is a no-no. They don't want you canceling classes, but I didn't feel up for it. I couldn't look my students in the faces. I was like, I'm hurt. I'm hurt, y'all. I'm really hurt. And I was online. I was watching video after video, trying to understand, trying to get information about what happened in Los Angeles. I was just really hurt, preoccupied with what was going on in Los Angeles. Um, I um for one whole week, I was focused on Nipsey. Yep. And then it was 7 days later when I was going to work, just as I had done. for the last 6 months or so. I lived in Oman for 6 or 7 months. And 7 days later, I was going to work, same as I was before, when, as I was leaving my home, I walked outside and I looked into the sky. Soon as I looked into the sky, I was standing on the steps right outside of my home. That was the first thing I did. I had my backpack on my shoulder. I was dressed to go to work. I stepped outside, opened the door, stepped outside. I looked into the sky. Sun was up there. It was kind of a cloudy day, but there were no like clouds. It wasn't a cumulus cloud. These were like stratus clouds, but it wasn't even a cloudy day. It was more of it was kind of like a haze, like just a haze all across the sky. It was just a haze. And as I looked up, I noticed that there were two extremely distinct lines, clearly delineated, clearly articulated lines in the sky. And I was like, how did those lines get up there? Because, okay, let me describe it again. The, the sky was hazy, covered in a haze, but where these lines were, it appeared that the haze had been erased. Okay, imagine, if you will, a table full of cocaine. Imagine if someone comes up and snorts cocaine off of the table. Where they snorted the cocaine, it will leave an open space, a gap, if you will. Imagine the sky being like covered in cocaine and then a sniff. If someone were to sniff in a line, down a line, you would see a line in the sky. It appeared as if the clouds had been removed in a line, in two lines that intersected perpendicularly from my vantage point. And I couldn't accept the fact or accept the idea that just before getting dressed, just before walking outside of my home's door, that two airplanes flying perpendicular to one another had just flown overhead, thus leaving behind these chemtrail like, delineations. No, there was no possibility that that could even happen because those lines appeared to be quite close to the ground. If I had to guess, I'd say 1,000 to 10,000 feet off of the ground. And yet, anytime I had seen an airplane fly over that particular city, you could barely detect their presence because they would be 38,000 to 40,000 feet above the ground. You could certainly see them at night. You see the blinking lights as the planes are flying overhead, but they were not close to the ground. Same thing with the during the daytime. If you were lucky to see an airplane fly overhead, they would fly at 30 plus thousand feet in the sky. Never 10,000 feet. Heck, that morning I didn't even hear any airplanes. So what I'm trying to say is this. I lived in that city for 6 to 7 months. I never saw anything like that. But only on that particular day, which makes it a very bizarre occurrence. At least it's bizarre. Like, where did those come from? Why on that particular day? How could that have been created? If airplanes are not flying overhead regularly, then you could not have expected to have seen that. Never could you expect to see that. And yet, there it was. And it was 7 days after. Now, for me, that was the capstone of a very difficult week after learning of Nipsey's demise. And that week was at the end, that week was there were three things that stood out. It was 109, it was that cross in the sky, and it was Nipsey Hussle. Those three things. Couldn't shake the fact that I had seen those three things, and I believe that they were connected. Deep connection, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Couldn't explain what the connection was, but I'll never forget. It was Nipsey, that cross, and 109. That was 2019. When I came back to Los Angeles months later in 2019, but I think I made the discovery in 2020, maybe 2021, I found a very famous mural of Nipsey Hussle that had been painted on the ground at a local school. The school is actually the Crete Academy, located at the intersection of 60th Street and Crenshaw. And just as I had remembered, had been impressed with these three things in the desert, 109, Nipsey, and those lines at the intersection of of Crenshaw and 60th Street, I found exactly those three things. I found an address. The address is 6109. Next to a cross. At the school, the school is it's a parochial school, so there's a cross adorning the building. And you can see it right there from the street. You can see address, an apartment building address 6109. You can see a cross, and then on the playground, there used to be a mural of Nipsey Hussle. But there were those three things that I saw in the desert that I found right here in Los Angeles, right next to each other. And you didn't even have to search for it. It was like, it's right there, and it's right there. I'm not talking about it's over there, and come over here, and it's over. No, it was like, it's right there, there, and there. Those three things. So, what happened in the desert, I was reminded of it right there in Los Angeles. Like, that's wild. So, Oman, needless to say, Oman had this incredible, magical, mystical, created a magical, mystical impression on me. Incredible. Incredible one. I just, man, what an experience. Excuse me. About it. Let's do props.
You are now listening to the IC109 podcast.
All right. So, Oman. Now let's go back to that detail that I told you about. The night, the night that Nipsey expired, that the whole thing went down with Nipsey, I was laying on the ground at the foot of my bed. The reason that's so important is because after Nipsey was shot, he too was laying on the ground on his bed, and he was 8,000 miles away from me. I was 8,000 miles away from him. We were both laying on the ground. It's symbolically, we were matched. Interesting. We were connected. And yes, only I got up from the ground, right? I had to go to work that day. That was a connection. I didn't make that connection that day. That connection, that's more of a poetic connection for the movie. I'll have to reenact that. But something that I did notice, something that I absolutely noticed in 2019 was this. At that time, I was suffering from a foot fungus. Skin on my foot was peeling, and I was trying to heal. I was trying to allow it to heal. I had done a lot of the wrong things to heal, and so I finally went to the doctor, and they gave me some medicine. They cleaned up the wound with iodine, and they gave me a burn ointment, a burn cream ointment to put on my foot. It was incredible. I was doing all the wrong things. I was agitating the wound, and when they put the iodine on my foot, it was like it was it had cleared up immediately. They were like, "What you were putting on it just aggravated it. We just calmed it down. It went from hot, your foot was hot and a mess, to cool and calm." Like, oh wow, that's amazing. So I took some iodine. I bought some iodine, and I bought the burn gel. So daily, I would apply the iodine to clean the wound, clean the fungus, clean the foot, and then I would put the ointment on so that it would just have some moisture, and it would be it would just continue to heal. Now, when you put iodine and this ointment on your foot, it's a gel, and perhaps the iodine can stain a surface, and the gel could also rub off on a different surface. So you had to protect it. So what I was doing, this was affected. My right foot was affected, infected, however you want to call it. So I would what is it? I would dress my foot. I would touch up my foot, and then I would put the ointment on or whatever, and then I would put a sock. I would wear one sock on my right foot. That's what I did. That was my routine to heal my foot, and my foot healed beautifully. I was amazed. I thought, man, I have never seen healing. I have never seen the human body heal like this. I thought I was a goner. My foot looked as terrible as like a homeless person that had gone untreated for a very long time. I was put off by by the sight of my own foot. And I couldn't wear, toed shoes. That would just aggravate my foot. I was wearing open toe shoes, and it was just a ugly, ugly scene, man. Anywho, the fact that I had one sock on my right foot was significant to me, because as I was watching videos of the crime scene, um, and came across a video where Nipsey Hussle, his body was being, you know, ushered out, carried out on a gurney. I noticed that Nipsey had one sock on his foot. And just as poetic as it was that Nipsey was laying on the ground or rather, as I was laying on the ground, as Nipsey was laying on the ground, the day that he was shot, thousands of miles away from each other, but still there was a resonance. I felt it. There I was watching that video, saying to myself, "Oh my gosh." And I happened to look at my foot too. I said, "I'm wearing one sock on my right foot, and I'm looking at Nipsey being carried out on that gurney, and he has one sock on his left foot. Left, right. Put them together, it's a match. It's a pair." I was like, "Oh my gosh, these details. Oh man, what?" That hit me. That resonated with me. And then it was just too much. It was just too much. It was like, these are signs. These are signs. So again, that same week that I learned of Nipsey's demise, I was so impacted by his death that I grabbed a pen and paper, and I was inspired to write my thoughts, write the ideals that I was trying to document my state of mind. document what all I thought about, the world and where we were. And at that time, everything was very much influenced by Ethiopia. Because I had been to Ethiopia, and the history of Ethiopia wasn't in the past. It was right there. It was real to me. And so an attack on Ethiopia wasn't an attack on me. An attack on Ethiopia was an attack on East Africa, all East Africans, and all Africans for that matter. But I took it very personal. And so it was a very deep, it was a connection, it was a sign that I had seen. And those socks, man, it was wild. So socks crossing the sky, 109 and Nipsey. Um, yeah, so I wrote the poem. It wasn't supposed to be a poem, it was supposed to be a rap. I was trying to get my feelings out because I was reeling. And I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, just poured out of me. And at some point, I don't remember the timeline, but everything came together. It was a long poem because it didn't flow to any music. It was a long poem, but it became my magnum opus, 109, the poem. And the poem just basically explained Nipsey's life. And it was very much in relation to Nipsey, seeing Nipsey as Jesus, as a Christ figure, a Messiah, and explaining what led to that conclusion and why I would even suggest that, from references to Dr. Henry Lewis, no, not Henry Louis Gates Jr., Dr. John Henry Clark, to references to His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I and Rastafarians and Yahshua ben Yosef, and just like real natural things that I was thinking about. Like, this is what it is. I see things very clearly, you dig? And so, poem came out of me, and I put the book together. I published it. I printed the book, and I believe that's why I was in Oman. I was in Oman to create that book, to present that book, to gather those ideals, because it was a perspective that wasn't being shared in American media among regular folk. I heard it. I heard it, here and there from like Snoop. Snoop said Nipsey was of the bloodline of Haile Selassie I, Christ like. Heard that. And as of late, 6 years after Nipsey's death, I heard YG say that Nipsey was Jesus. So I've heard it. But I was saying this after those experiences, those miraculous experiences in the desert. I was saying that Nipsey was Jesus. I was trying to say that at least, but I still didn't know what 109 was trying to communicate. So I asked one of my colleagues one day, I said, man, I keep having these moments. 109 just keeps telling me, here I am, here I am, here I am, showing up in these peculiar moments. And I said, I don't understand what 109 means. And my colleague just said, his name is Calvin. Calvin said, ask Google. And it was the simplest suggestion, and yet I hadn't even thought to ask Google. I was like, damn, I should have done that a long time ago. So I go to Google, ask Google about 109. What does it mean? And Google tells me it's a angel number. And I'm like, that's the answer. It's an angel number. Right. And then I'm like, what does another number mean? And as I start asking Google what every other number that I could think of means, I arrive at the conclusion that every number is an angel number. And I'm like, oh man, Google hasn't satisfied me. Not that I was excited to discover that it was an angel number, but not when everything is an angel number, every number. So I was then stuck. I was lost. Once again, I thought I had found a new path, a new interpretation, in which I did. If we go back to 2 hours ago, I said that 109 was my birthday. And then 109 was a national holiday in Korea. And then 109 was the name of a Japanese shopping mall, but it's also the Goro Awas or Goro Awase pun in Japanese. All of these things. So it's all of this stuff. So then now Google says 109 is an angel number. And then I was unsatisfied with that answer. And I went to the nation of gods and earths, 5 percenters. I don't know what led me to the 5 percenters, but gave them a chance. I said, let me figure out. I know the 5 percenters have a supreme mathematics. Maybe they have a suggestion. Maybe they can tell me what these numbers mean. And when I found their explanation, it was the explanation I was looking for. It was the definition of each number that I was looking for. Because 109 has a is an allusion to my birthday, day on which I was born. And the 5 percenter doctrine, the supreme mathematics, puts forth each number has a characteristic. One is knowledge. Circle or zero is knowledge plus cipher. And then get this. I loved it. I said yes, the nation of gods and earths, that's the interpretation I'm going with. That's the group I'm going with. I must be a 5 percenter because it resonates with me. Because in their book, in their definition of supreme mathematics, number 9 is the number of born. I said, it's not an angel number. It's knowledge cipher born or knowledge cipher. It's knowledge cipher born. I just truncated it to knowledge cipher born. That's what it is to me. 1, 0, and 9. Because born is the number 9. Because it's my birthday. It's an illusion of my birthday. So I was like, knowledge cipher born. That's 109. Excuse me. Actually, knowledge cipher born. But just for to be cool, knowledge cipher born. Excuse me.
Welcome. You are now listening to the 10-9 podcast.
There I was. I had accepted that I was a 5 percenter because the numbers 109 were calling me to be. Or at least they were just calling me to interpret, to follow that interpretation, to say this is another interpretation. Be open to interpretations. Here's another one for your bag of interpretations.
You're at 109 right now.
So I took that. Then I learned, I don't know, I found I guess I was online searching for 109 interpretations. And then I found a company called 109 World. Now, when I found 109 World, I got excited because I thought, no, I was excited, but I was also dismayed, upset. Someone had already come to the conclusion that 109 was so significant that they named their company 109 World. And I was like, dang, I'm too late. So there they were. They created 109 World. And I sent an email to their owner, found their information online. It was perfect timing, actually, because the company is no longer in existence. It was a not for profit organization and it's no longer, operating. I sent a message to their one of the owners, the founders, Leticia Gonzalez Reyes, I believe her name is. She wrote me back. I asked her, let me get, matter of fact, I'm going to just find the email instead of trying to just tell you what I wrote. Leticia. Needed a lot of these emails that came. That's good. Okay, give me a second here. Give me a second here. Should have some music or something. Oh, that's fascinating. I got a response from Mark. Wow, that's really crazy. I didn't even check my messages to find that. Gosh, man. Oh, that was beautiful. One of my former colleagues sent me I sent him a message and then he sent me a message. I hadn't read it. Wow. And I'm just discovering it as I'm recording this podcast with you all. And I'm so glad that I found that. I have to send him a message back, man. Love to talk with him. Man, okay. That's a piece of my history right there. That guy, man, is amazing. Okay, so let's see. I was telling you about Leticia. Her email account back in the day was Leticia at 109world.com. Let's see. I have an email here. 2021, I have an email from her. Okay. So I just sent her an email one time and it just said, what does 109 mean? That was it. That was it. And she wrote me back. She literally wrote me back. She wrote this. She said, hi, Larry. Our name comes from the mala in Sanskrit, mala, meaning garland, which is a string of prayer beads commonly used by Hindus and Buddhists for the spiritual practice known as japa, the meditative repetition of a mantra or a divine name. Ooh. Mala is usually made from 108 beads, with the 109th bead holding the circle together. The 109th bead is a pause of silence, gratitude, and acknowledgement before continuing the journey onward. That's exactly what these moments. I'm not reading at this point. I've stopped. Excuse me for a second. That's exactly what happens when I'm on my journey. It's a moment of pause. When I encounter 109, I pause and I say, Lord, thank you, God. Gratitude. He continues, there exists a term for a pause of great meaning in philosophies, theologies, and disciplines in all walks of life. And in many cases, this pause is part of a ceremony or habit wherein practitioners engage in this pause with regularity. This is what 109 is built from. Taking time to pause in some way every day, quiet the mind, to acknowledge those who come before, who stand with us, and who will come after us. Most of all, to be grateful for all the potential we carry within. You can also read more about our values on our website, 109 World Values. My warmest, Leticia. Let's see if the website, doggone it, the website no longer exists. You can't read about the values. It was 109world.com. Man. Leticia Gonzalez Reyes. She wrote that back to me. I asked one simple question. What does 109 mean? She wrote that back to me. I tried writing her again in October of 2025, just last month. Same address. I said, let me go ahead and send her a message. Let me see. And unfortunately, she no longer uses that website, that web address. There's no longer a 109 World. It no longer exists. Yada, yada, yada. Done. We're done. Sad. Very, very sad. I mean, I could find Leticia, message her, and try to get her on a podcast and all that. That would be a beautiful experience. She actually wrote me back. That was the response. So I was pretty much floored with that interpretation. Excuse me.
You're at 109 right now.
You are now listening to the IC109 podcast.
Hey, baby! Welcome to the IC109 podcast. This is gonna be a groovy shindig. Welcome, pimps, players, women of the night, and anybody else interested in 10-9.
Excuse me, I had to take a little break there to clear my nose. Man, dude. That was a beautiful interpretation that she sent directly to me. She took her time out to write that for me. I was floored. I was like, that's great. There I was. I had taken a new interpretation of 109 from Leticia. And to this day, I have a mala, a necklace with 109 beads on it. I know the significance because of Leticia. That's incredible. Because I didn't learn about this. I didn't learn about the mala, beads, Buddhism, Hinduism. I didn't learn any of this stuff in school. None of it whatsoever. You have to study this stuff on your own. You have to be called to learn this stuff. Otherwise, you could be completely content watching your cartoons, playing your video games, eating your potato chips, having a hamburger, hot dog, staying up with the local drama, listening to the latest song by your favorite icon, and not going any deeper for a long time. There I was traveling the world, having these moments of intersection with these numbers, and I'm like struggling to figure it all out. And my colleague just said, "Go Google it." That didn't solve it for me. It was the nation of gods and earths that I gravitated towards. Then it was Leticia's answer that led me in the direction of Hinduism and Buddhism and the significance of 108. The sun is so big you could take 108 earths and line them up from one end of the sun to the other end. Fit 108 earths inside the sun. Between the sun and the earth, you can take 108 suns between earth and the sun. Such a great distance. Huge. Yeah. So why the heck is 108 such a significant number? Well, it's because in the heavens, 108 is up there. And the human body. The statement is the philosophy is as without, so within. As within, so without. Inside as equals outside. It's an algebraic equation. X equals Y. X is the inside, Y is the outside. X equals Y. They're the same. So 108 degrees, your internal organs, the human body, the internal organs will shut down. You'll be dead. 108 degrees. A healthy human body will breathe 108 times 100. That's 10,800 times during the day and at night. You will breathe that many times each day. So just as 108 and or rather 109 is that moment where you have to pause to for silence and gratitude, it's like every time you breathe, that's a moment for you to be grateful for. See what I did there? Man, Sanskrit, Hinduism, Buddhism, gratitude, God. Powerful, man. That is what it's all about. It's about all of this stuff is just incredible. All right, but I have one other interpretation that I was led to. So there's this restaurant in Colorado called Felipe's. Felipe's 109 Taco Burgers. Felipe's 109 Taco Burgers. And I saw his advertisement on Instagram, I believe it was. And I was like, does he see the numbers like I see them? That's essentially what happened with Leticia and 109 World. I was like, can you tell me what it means? What does it mean to you? Do you see the numbers the way I see it? That's what I was getting at. Like, do you see the numbers like I see them? And they shared with me the reason that they named their company 109. Leticia shared with me her interpretation, and then Felipe did that. So I asked him, I said, do you see 109 in strange, peculiar moments of your life? He said, no. He said, I got this from the Bible. Like, what? He said, yeah, Romans 10:9. I said, Romans 10:9. I was like, man, I don't even read the Bible, so I don't know what you're referring to, but I'm gonna have to look it up, which I did. I looked it up. And when I looked it up, I read the most powerful verse that could have ever uh, explained why I saw a cross, my number's 109, and why I was thinking of Nipsey. Or rather, the Romans 10:9 verse is so powerful that it basically explains why I saw the cross 109 and Nipsey. Why I was focused on Nipsey, 109, and the cross in the desert, and why I found it here in Los Angeles the same way. One Romans 10:9 says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. That isn't a popular verse. That's a popular verse. It's a powerful verse. And when I heard how fascinating, how closely related to Jesus that verse was, and when I thought about how Nipsey, how I was thinking about Nipsey, how I saw 109 and how I saw that cross in the desert, how all of that came together, then I was like, okay, I thought Nipsey was Jesus when He was murdered because I saw 109 and I felt it. Felt it. It was like God was telling me that boy was special right there. Why else did I see 109 that day? Why else did these events unfold the way that they did? But it wasn't until Felipe told me that 109 is a reference to Romans 10:9 did I have a biblical verse to explain it and say that's what God was talking about. And it blew me away like, oh, so that is what I was thinking. Nipsey was Jesus. What happened? That's Felipe. Felipe and his taco burgers led me to that interpretation. But everything else supported it. Everything else supported it in some way. The Nation of Gods and Earth said, Knowledge Cipher, born. Born. That's my birthday. So my birthday brought me into the knowledge of Jesus, of Christ, seeing it, black man, seeing Christ like. And the curious thing is Nipsey's name, Ermias, his real name, Ermias means God will rise, which even offers to us, to the world, that he was special, he was enlightened. Then Nipsey rode the 108 bus. 108 is that highly sacred number, and there was Nipsey riding the 108 bus. He rode the 108 bus to the Watts Towers. If you look at the Watts Towers and you discover that Simon Rodia worked on the towers for exactly 33 years, not mistaken, he stopped in 1954. Where have we heard that date before? That year, 1954. That's a 10-9 date. 1 plus 9 is 10. 5 plus 4 is 9. He worked on the watchtowers for exactly 33 years and then stopped and did something else. Simone Rodia from Italy. Nipsey Hussle went to the watchtowers, where at the Art Center he studied how to make music. The Watts Towers is 1 block away from 108th Street. Fascinating. Coincidences. Just coincidences. Uh, so cut to 2000 and okay, so from 2019 cut to 2022, I guess. I had the book. I wrote the book. I created different. I printed new copies of the book. I've been doing YouTube videos, building my YouTube channels. I've just been traveling and just been living, been thankful, been saying my prayers, my grace, um, thinking, sharing, doing all of this stuff. Then, 2022, I go to Sweden, Denmark, Poland, England, Ireland. Yep. In Sweden, I go to the Alfred Nobel Peace Prize Museum. Walk into the museum, and the receptionist takes my money, $15 or so. She's like, maybe not $15. She said 15 minutes. Paid to get in. She said, there's a tour starting in 15 minutes. You should join the tour. I said, lady, I can see the museum on my own. I don't need to join a tour. She said, the tour will begin in 15 minutes and you should join the tour. And I was like, come on, lady. It's just a museum. I can see it on my own. She's like, you should join the tour. I'll join the damn. 15 minutes to kill. Let me go into the store, the gift shop. Kill some time. Go into the gift shop. Cashier is a young Eritrean woman in Sweden. I approach the counter. I know she's working. She can't talk very much, but I ask her, what did Nipsey Hussle mean to you? She was like, oh my gosh, Nipsey. Nipsey showed that it was possible for an Eritrean to be successful in America. He was a beacon of hope. Did his death affect you? She said, his death affected all of us very deeply. He was a brother. He was an Eritrean. I said, wow. I knew that, but I just wanted confirmation from someone, with boots on the ground, someone who could tell me, someone from the community to tell me. And it was not like I didn't have to say, do you know Nipsey Hussle? And she'd be like, who? No, she knew exactly who I was talking about. I was like, see, that's what I'm talking about. We're not even in LA. And his power, his influence was global. So then 15 minutes later, the tour begins. And the lady who was the receptionist, well, she's also the tour guide. I'm like, oh, wow, look, I didn't know she was the tour guide. That's why she was telling me to join the tour. She was trying to build the tour group, her tour group. She's talking, and I can't help but look over her left shoulder because there's a display case behind her left shoulder, or behind her. There's a whole display case all behind her. But behind her left shoulder is a document in the display case, a document from the year 1934. You can see clearly the year 1934 written on the document, especially from where I was standing. I was standing like 8 feet away from her. I could see 1934. Just below 1934, I could see another number that was scribbled on there. And I didn't want to jump to any conclusions because to me, to my eye, it looked like 109. But I could have been wrong. It could have been 209. So I was like, I need to ask this lady. I need to ask her if my eyes deceive me. Excuse me. This is another one of those moments where I need the actual video. What is it? Sweden. All right. Here we go. I'm gonna try to find it. All right, we got the 9-minute video. Here it is. Listen. I'm gonna turn it down first because it might be a.
Could you read that number to me, please?
You see? I just asked her. Here we
50
go.
years time we will know because they released the material. Yeah,
In the last display over here,
yeah.
I can't see it, but is that a number? Could you read that number to me, please?
The 1934 and 109.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the.
I'm in a tour group, and this woman is doing her job, and I'm like, hey, excuse me, I know you talking about all this historic stuff, but is that the number 109? It was the one. You heard her. You heard her say it. I filmed that whole interaction. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. There it is. And then the story behind the document and the person whose life, is intermingled with that story. The whole story about the man, Karl von Ossietzky, is so powerful. I guess I have to tell it. So Karl von Ossietzky was a journalist in Germany. Karl von Ossietzky spoke out against the Nazi Party, spoke out against Hitler. And journalists have always been the enemy, have always been looked at as the enemy of the state. And in his case, when he spoke out against Hitler and the Nazi Party, you see, he caught wind of the fact that the Germans, the Nazi parties were stockpiling weapons. They were stockpiling weapons. And Karl von Ossietzky said, this can't be good. The outcome is going to be disastrous for someone. the plans of the Nazi party, you know, it's going to be bad. So he spoke about it. He talked about it. He shared that with the world, and the Nazi party jailed him, of course, because he spoke out. They're like, "You're going to ruin our plans. You're giving too much information, etc., etc." So they jailed him. While he was imprisoned, of course, he suffered greatly, but they awarded him the Nobel Peace Prize. They wanted to award them. He was nominated to win the Nobel Peace Prize, and yet he was in prison and he was not going to be awarded. The Sweden, okay, Sweden has remained a neutral country. It's Sweden, the country that of Alfred Nobel, that awards the Nobel Peace Prize. And Sweden did not want to get involved in the war, in the politics of World War II. And so, to remain neutral, I believe they did not upset the German government. They did not upset the Germans by awarding the Nobel Peace Prize to Karl von Ossietzky, but he was nominated. Those are the details that I have. But the point is, he stood up for what was right. He let people know what was happening. He suffered for it. It's courageous. That's amazing. All right, I'm gonna play the rest of what the tour guide, what she said at the tour. Hopefully, she'll do a better job than what I did of explaining the legacy of Karl von Ossietzky.
The number of the nominee, so they put a number. So that's nominee number 109.
Okay, before I continue, I'm gonna say I think she was bullshitting right there. I don't think there were 109 nominees. I think my question caught her off guard, and so she was bullshitting. She was making shit up because I know there were not 109 nominees. Like, it's a mystery why 109 is even written on that document. Period. It might have been like a filing system that they were using, and that just happened to be the 109th telegram. It is a telegram that the document is. It's a telegram. Um, yeah, but she didn't know. My question caught her off guard. But the history about the man Karl von Ossietzky, she knew that. She knew the history, so I'm gonna let her tell it.
That's an interesting nomination letter, by the way, or it's a telegram, which was quite usual back in the days. It's a telegram nominating Karl von Ossietzky, another journalist, I think the first journalist to receive the Peace Prize. And he received the prize in 1934, as it says there. He was a German journalist who very early on reported, he wrote for a newspaper called Die Weltbühne, and he reported on Germany starting to arm up, which they weren't allowed to after World War I, and Hitler and what he was doing. So he was one of the first political prisoners in the concentration camps, and when he received the Peace Prize, he was still in the concentration camps. Hitler was very angry about this Nobel Prize. He forbade all German citizens to ever say yes to a Nobel Prize, and they did not let him out. He unfortunately died, I think, in 1938, so he wasn't able to come and receive his prize. And this is a fact for some of the peace laureates, that it's not the first time that somebody who is imprisoned received the Peace Prize. That does not mean that they don't get the prize, in the sense that usually the family.
All right, so more of that video. You can watch the rest of the content. I have a 9-minute video. You can type in on YouTube, Sweden 2002 Nobel Peace Prize Museum Tour, IC 109.
You're at 109 right now.
To watch that video in its entirety, to watch me interrogate her during her tour, watch her fumble with the answer or whatever, lying on the spot, In some cases, the rest of the case, she's telling the truth. She's doing her best, you know. Kudos to her. Um, that was 2022. That was in Sweden. Um, on that same tour, I went to Ireland. 2022. I went to Ireland. I went to a restaurant because I was in Ireland for the very first time and I was hungry. I was in Dublin, Ireland. I go to the restaurant. I sit down, order my food. I order a Guinness stout, a burger, fries, and I have some delicious hot English mustard. Love hot English mustard. Strong English mustard. That's what it is. Strong English mustard, not hot English mustard. Strong English mustard. It is hot. It was so delicious. I ate everything. I drank all of my drink. And then when my receipt came to me, I was receipt number
You're at 109 right now.
109. Another coincidence. But again, if you think about the fact that I was seated, no, the fact that when I entered the restaurant, I could have been a minute earlier or a minute later, and another customer might have gotten number 109, but that didn't happen. I got that. I got 109. First time in Ireland, first time at a restaurant in Ireland, at that restaurant, and I got 109. I thought, man, is somebody following me? Did someone set this up? Is the CIA involved? And I got 109. I took pictures. I did all that stuff. I took videos, all that stuff. 109, 109, 10, 9, 10, 9, 109, 109, 10, 9, 10, 9. So that's the story. The last part, the final part about all of this. Let's see. Any other stories? Any other countries? Ghana. In Ghana, saw 109 on a license plate. My room number was 109, which I don't know if Edmund, I told Edmund about 109. And then he told me my room number would be 109. I don't know if he had a hand in selecting that room for me or what have you, but I got room 109. I said, that's interesting. But he told me, Larry, I did not choose that for you. That was your room assignment. I was like, what? I said, all right, whatever, man. I'll run with it. That was Ghana. Uh, I was in Colombia. In I was in Colombia recently. Over the summer, I went back to Japan, Korea, went back to Thailand. I went back to Colombia summer. Over the summer, I was in Colombia because in Japan, Korea, Thailand, I don't remember having 109 moments that are very poignant, peculiar, that really stick out. Yeah, I saw one. Well, no, 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 no. You know what? When I was in Thailand over the summer, I met up with my former colleague. We were walking the streets of Pattaya, and I did see a car. It was the first day that I was in Pattaya with my former colleague, and a car with license plate number 1109, passed me by. And I noticed it. I did not photograph or film it, but I noticed it. And then I just made a mental note, like, okay, I saw 109. Um, Thailand has greeted me. That was the interpretation I got. My first day in Pattaya, I saw 1109 on a car license plate. Those are my numbers. I'm welcome here. When I was in Korea, in South Korea, I remember I did I was looking for 109, right? So I saw train station. I saw 10. I saw the track numbers 10. and I filmed those track numbers. I also, while in Korea, went to the casino. I was playing $100. I was losing my money, and I was down to 109,000 Korean won. I took a picture. Started with like 300,000 Korean won, and I was down to 109 Korean won. And when I had that, I took a picture of it. Yeah, I think those are the moments. I don't remember at this moment of this recording. I can't think of anything that happened very significant in Korea. I will say that my friend Gigi Jeek, I mentioned her earlier. Gigi Jeek. I was back in Korea over the summer. I had an opportunity to meet up with old friends, and I believe Gigi Jeek declined to meet with me. I think she was busy. She said that she wouldn't meet with me, and that would have been the last time that I would have been able to see Gigi Jeek alive. And the night that she lost her life, I recall being in Los Angeles. I was in Inglewood, California, in my apartment. That night, I went to sleep and I was awakened by stomach ache. I had to get up and go use the bathroom. It was quite uncomfortable. I wouldn't say painful, but it was uncomfortable. And I got up to use the restroom, and I felt better thereafter. But it was an unusual night. Usually, I'll wake up to just urinate, but I had to defecate. It was a different experience for me. It was a strong, uncomfortable feeling in my stomach that night. So I got up to use the restroom and I felt better, went back to sleep. And then when I woke up to the news that Gigi had passed away. She had been in the hospital, from what I understand, like 2 days before she died. And it was just incredibly devastating news. But it was also so coincidental that my stomach ached. I didn't feel like I had been in Korea, so I felt as if I had connected with her. And then that connection carried over to America when she was in the greatest need and distress. I also felt it. I felt it physically. That is what happened. That's what I imagine. We are connected. When we interact with our friends and our people, we are connected. Alive. You dig? That's what I felt like happened. I was just like, wow. Yeah, it was kind of like, why did my stomach hurt that night? It was the same night that Gigi G lost her life. Like, yeah, things like that, weird things, coincidental things like that. Interesting, because I had never been woken up like that to use the bathroom. That level of discomfort, I had never experienced that before. That was that was new, completely new to me. 2025, Thailand. Oh, Colombia. So I'm in Colombia over the summer. I meet Ricky, great guy, attended Howard University, and we're colleagues. We're working together. Ricky's black guy. Ricky went to Howard University, as I mentioned. So Ricky and I traveled to another city because I'm a world traveler. So when I get to one country, I'm trying to explore as much as I can explore in that country. I'm with Ricky, or rather, I say, hey, I'm gonna go to Cali, another city, Cali, Colombia. Ricky is like, well, I'm going with you, bruh. Good, very good. He had been in the city, Chinchina, where a lot of the coffee comes from, living and working, but it's very intimidating to just get up and travel on your own, especially when you don't know the language. There's a lot involved. But when you have a partner This is the African proverb. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I was so delighted that Ricky was ready to travel because I needed someone to travel with, and I believe he needed someone to travel with as well. You know, because it's his very first country, international country. He's 27 years old. I left America for the very first time when I was 27 years old. I went to Korea to work. So I understood. And although I've traveled the globe and I've had these wonderful experiences, I remember when I was in Ethiopia, my experience in any particular country has only been heightened, improved by the presence of friends, people that I know. And a lot of my friends I met in Korea, and then I saw them again in other countries, unless I worked with them. But yes, friends and people, and I'm not talking about the people that you meet there in these new countries, but I mean the people that like yeah, the people that you know that you spent time with you've learned about them, and then you see them in other countries or you spend time, man, that's such a beautiful experience. Because when I was in Ethiopia, I had one sort of experience by myself. But then when I ran into Arnell and Dane, husband and wife, is it Ranell and Dane. When I ran into them, they were like, "Yo, we remember you." I was like, "I remember you guys too. What's up?" And we would just keep running into each other, and then we just hung out with each other, and it made for a more special experience because then we could talk to each other, share experiences. We experienced this, experienced that. What are you doing? What do you think about this? Sharing. We were sharing at that point. That was beautiful. It was really beautiful. All right, so there I was with Ricky, and we decided to go to this other. We were going to go to this other city, Cali, predominantly black, city. So we get to the other city, and I'm telling Ricky about my taxi story, like the Fresh Prince of Bel Air story, and he's like listening. He's like, okay, that's cool. Plus, he's not accustomed to seeing taxis, seeing the lines where people line up for the taxis or whatever. He's from, where's he from? Like Atlanta. Yeah, most recently he's from Georgia. He lived in DC when he went to Howard. Okay. But there we are waiting for the taxi, and I'm telling him, man, I have this thing with these numbers, 109. Like, don't be surprised if we get assigned to taxi 109. These kind of things happen, right? So he's listening to me talk about 109, and I'm like, okay. And that's it. We get in the taxi, but it's not taxi 109. But do you know, as we're driving, as the taxi departs, and as we're on our way to our Airbnb, the hotel where we're staying, Ricky says, "Hey, Larry, look over here." And to our left, there's a taxi. There is taxi 109. And he's like, "There it is right there. You told me about taxi 109, and there it is right there next to us." I was like, "Get out of here, man. You kidding me?" And I said, "Please, man, film that for me. Film it." So he filmed it for me, threw it up on, I think, TikTok, Instagram, or whatever. Like that happens. Just like I was in the Uber. I was Ubering with the guy. His name was Jacob. I told you this story before, hours ago. Jacob and I were on it. I was taking him to his destination, and we were talking. We started talking about art. Told him about 109, and then the car jumped in front of me and with license plate 109 on it. His jaw dropped. He was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that it happened." Just as you said it. He said, "I gotta shake your hand, man." He was getting out the car. He shook my hand and told me, good luck or whatever, man. That happened on our trip, man. That was cool. So Columbia. All right. So Ricky and I, so that happened. We're in the taxi and we see 109. Another day, I go to another city in Colombia. I'm sipping on some coffee and I happen to turn around in my chair and I look out to the street. First, I was facing the barista. Next, I turn around and look behind me to look out to the street. As I look out to the street, bus number 109 passes. Whoa. I just happened to turn around and there was bus 109. Wow. There was one story that I forgot to tell you that happened in 2023, but it's just like this story from Colombia where the bus passes with 109 on it. I'm going to tell that story. There I was in Ecuador, Quito, Ecuador, 2023. I'm in my hotel room, and the first thing that struck me is I'm trying to connect to Wi-Fi, and I'm in my hotel room. I'm in room 119, by the way. 119 is a number that resonates with me because that was the day that I lost my grandmother, January 19th, 2024. And yeah, whenever I see 119, that's my grandmother's day right there. Now, I'm in room 119. So I was already feeling sort of some kind of way because I was like, dang, I could have been in room 109, but I'm not. I'm in 119. Okay. But I'm in room 119 and I'm searching for the Wi-Fi, connection. And then I look at the username. And the username for Wi-Fi is 109 something. And I jump back. I'm like, oh, snap, here we go. And I say to myself, you know what? I was expecting Quito, Ecuador. I was expecting Ecuador to have a 109 scenario play out here. I was waiting. I thought I knew something like this was going to happen in Ecuador. It's a new country for me. I knew something like this was going to happen. So I checked the Wi-Fi signal. I don't have the password yet, but the Wi-Fi is coming out of room 109. I'm like, ooh, this is interesting. 109, here we go. So I go down to the receptionist desk and I ask for the password, 109, whatever. She gives me the password and I've got the connection. But I make a mental note. I don't tell her about 109. I just make a mental note that, hey, the Wi Fi signal is coming out of room 109. I said, that's interesting. So maybe the following day, I step out of the hotel and I walk to the corner of the block, corner of the street, end of the street. That's what I do at the end of the street. It's not a corner. Take my camera with me and I set up and there's a little stoop, a few stairs, and I'm like, this is a perfect place to film and talk. So I just set up the camera and I just sit there and I start recording and I'm talking, completely oblivious to what's going on around me when bus number 109 passes by as I'm filming. I was completely oblivious to this until after it passed. I looked up and I saw 109 on there and I jumped. Well, I didn't literally jump, but I thought, oh my gosh, did that bus just pass by me? And I was filming? Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So, just as in Colombia, that bus with 109 passed, there I was in Quito, Ecuador, 2023. That bus passed and I was filming and I got it. I got it that time. Um, there's one other thing. There's one other the corner. Yeah, it was the corner. When I said the corner, I forgot to go back to Thailand. See, in Thailand in 2019, when I was in Thailand, I left my hotel and I walked to the corner in Thailand, the street corner, and I noticed on the street corner that they had two numbers on that street corner. and it was 10 and 9. And I thought, well, wow, maybe every street corner in Thailand is assigned a number. But I thought it was quite peculiar and strange that I'll make my way to corner 10-9 when there was a corner 7-8, 5-6, 3-4, you dig? But when I went back to Thailand over this past summer in 2025, I went back to that street corner. I did not see the numbers 10 and 9 there. I saw different numbers. So I don't know what that's all about. Things change. And so those moments when I was aware, when I was mindful in those moments and I saw 10-9, those were very rare, special moments because they were real. They really happened. And 10-9 was there. 10-9 didn't have to be there. They were there when I was there. You know? In Japan, if you go to Japan, you'll still see 10-9. 10-9 is still there. But in other countries, other places, like not there in Oman at that roundabout, that was a one off, isolated incident. That truck came barreling down the road, cutting me off. There it was, 109, 1090. I'm Larry Wiggs. This is the IC109 podcast.
You're at 109 right now.
And I think I've told you all of my stories. I think I have.
Welcome. You are now listening to the 10-9 podcast.
Yep. So I believe that this is the most thorough retelling of events of 10-9 ever. So if I'm going to base my book, my future works, my movie on any retelling, this is the blueprint right here. This is 3 hours long. Of course, for the sake of a movie, it's going to be shortened. It's going to be dramatized. Hopefully, not embellished or very minimally embellished. You know, but yeah, this is it right here. Take this and run with it. Everything that I've told you, these are experiences that have occurred basically since 2007. Moments when I encountered these numbers. Oh, but I didn't tell you about the Basquiat, Jean-Michel Basquiat connection. That's the most intriguing, most recent intriguing like point of departure for connections with 10-9. I have to do that really, really quickly. So the conclusion from Oman was that Nipsey was Jesus. At least Nipsey was highly anointed, very special. Thought he was even a messiah because the FBI said, J. Edgar Hoover FBI said they were trying to prevent the rise of a messiah, one who can unify and electrify the people. And I certainly saw the unity when I watched the funeral procession, Nipsey's funeral procession drive through Crenshaw and Slauson, and you saw thousands of people in the streets unified, celebrate his life. That was unity defined, right? And then the electrification. FBI said, we are trying to fight the rise of a Messiah who can unify and electrify the people. I was in Oman and I was about to step onto the escalator and I touched the escalator and I was shocked. I was like, when they said electrify the people, this is in 2019 in Oman at the mall, and I was shocked. And I thought, when they said electrify the people, were they like being literal? I was wondering, could he have actually literally electrified the people just as they were warning? I thought, man, that's literally what happened when I touched the escalator. I got shocked and I thought, man, am I actually electrified? Could that be an actual physical thing that could happen? So that was question. That was something that I wondered about. That was something that actually happened. But then just to have all those ideas about floating, all those ideas floating around about Nipsey, and then to have been at home and put on the DVD and watched a documentary about Jean-Michel Basquiat, and to have found at 11:09 p.m. that Basquiat had, or no, I saw that he had written 109 on his painting, and it was around 11:09 p.m. when I was making this discovery that that moment in and of itself was very poignant. And so I took that and I said, that's now my favorite work of art by Jean Michel Basquiat. So I got a a print of that reproduction of that painting, put that up, and I decided to study it. And I studied it and I studied it. And I thought for a long time that Basquiat was talking about linguistics, history, business, economics, anatomy, biology. I thought he was talking about all of these things, and which he does. He's written things on the painting that refer to each of those fields of study, each of those areas. But then I saw a picture of Nipsey Hussle that reminded me of that painting, and then I was taken for another route of interpretation because it was I stopped looking at the linguistics, historic, anatomical, and all these other fields of study, and I basically said that's Nipsey Hussle in that picture that Basquiat painted. And I'm not guessing, I'm not hoping and wishing that it is, but rather evidence was right there. And as I looked at it, as I studied the artwork more closely, words popped off of the page that were directly, precisely linked to Nipsey Hussle. That led me to say, wow, yep, Basquiat painted Nipsey. Painting is a premonition. Perhaps Basquiat was, what is it? Body. He was, he had summoned the ancestral spirits and realm, but it was a, what is it when the body is taken over by a spirit or something? Not a conjuring, possession, spirit possession. So when he was painting, he was spirit, his body was possessed. He created this work of art that is a premonition of Nipsey Hussle. Premonition, words that he chose, the words that spoke to him that he put on that canvas speak directly, precisely to Nipsey Hussle's life. And then, curiously, there are squiggly lines that undeniably look like Nipsey Hussle's signature. Taken together, all of that says that is exactly what you're looking at. Perhaps a premonition created by Basquiat of Nipsey Hussle. But then, why Nipsey? Why Basquiat? Only explanation I have is well, Basquiat was Haitian, and when you think of Haitian voodoo, Vodun, and the spiritual practices that come out of Haiti, well, it's easy to see that spiritual possession, ancestral worship, all of these things are quite common in that practice. Voodoo, Vodun, and hoodoo. So that's where all of this has led me to. And that's the clearest evidence to say, look at that painting and look more closely at that painting and look at what I'm suggesting. Not so much interpreting as I am pointing out. Saying, look, if that doesn't look the same, if this isn't related to him and this and that, then come up with something else. But as far as I can tell, that's who it is. That's what was done. That is it.
You're at 109 right now.